Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday, December 3, Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Thanks for being here tonight. Clerk, we're going to go ahead and get started by reading our roll, please.
Councilmember Staley. Here. Brecky. Erickson. Here. Kiley.
Here.
Neitzer.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Starr.
Here.
Brecky's here.
Brecky's here as well. Are Reverend David Thompson or Reverend Nolan Ruby, are they here tonight to give our invocation? All right. The mayor's going to give the invocation then tonight, I guess. So what I would ask before we do that is, this past week we lost a former colleague of the city and of the state. Kermit Stagger passed away, and he was a member of this council and a tireless advocate for our city. And so what I would ask is we start with a moment of silence for that, and then I will give the invocation, and then we will give the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd ask that you stand for that moment of silence for Kermit to begin our meeting. Lord, we thank you for this evening and for bringing us here again on another cold night, but a beautiful night to do the work of the city that you have called these men and women at this dais to do. And we thank you for their service, the work that they do tirelessly to represent this city. I ask that you continue to watch over the city as we grow and we flourish. May we also deal with the challenges that come with growth, Lord, as there are many. And may we take our roles seriously in that, Lord. And may you give us the strength, the courage, and the wisdom to make the decisions to continue to make this great city we've all come to love. Watch over our discussion tonight. May it be cordial, professional, and may you be glorified through our work. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilor Steele.
A point of personal privilege. Councilor Chair Marshall Selberg and I had discussed, as in what happened when our former councilor Bob Jamison died, we were going to allow some time just to have some reflections for Kermit Staggers.
You bet. The floor is yours.
And I'm so grateful, several members, I think all the members visiting town here are here in memory of Kermit. His funeral was today, and I had the privilege of knowing Kermit as a mentor, a friend, a supporter, a great teacher these last 13 years. Kermit was the king of transparency in our city government. He believed in open government for the people. He believed in more information shared, not less. And he always stood for that. Kermit was a champion of citizens' responsiveness and respectfulness. Kermit always was ready to listen to concerns, and he was noted for doing house calls. If you had something going on, you needed to talk, Kermit would stop by and visit with you. People really, really appreciated that. Kermit was a staunch defender of fiscal responsibility. Kermit would ask the tough questions of the department heads. He'd ask them for accountability in how they were spending our money. He believed in working to keep fees and taxes low. And he frequently, he called fees a tax. He said fees are really a tax. He wanted to keep people in their homes. He wanted to strive for affordable living for all of our citizens. Kermit would hold the hands of citizens to help them maneuver through the bureaucracy of city government and Jim, if you'd show the next slide. He, showing that he was a friend. Go to the next one, please. Do we have the one of Kermit and Bruce? Oh, you don't have the one of them standing by this. I had another photo of Kermit and Bruce Danielson when they led a petition drive to stop the funding for the administration building. We didn't get that one. Kermit would enter into petitioning processes with the citizens. He is the father, the grandfather of Snowgates, this wonderful service that we are enjoying in our city. It was Kermit Stagger's idea. He brought that to the council, to the body, back before 2006. He would bring an amendment every year to say, let's experiment with Snowgates. And he was just kind of slapped away. And let me talk about being slapped. Kermit had persistence, even though he was disrespected greatly through different periods of his time on the council. He stayed the course. He never gave up. But the Snowgate issue, he brought it up. Bismarck, North Dakota had done it. He kept talking about it. I started talking about it. Then before Mayor Huther was elected, he started talking, he talked to us about it. He liked it. And after Huther got elected, I called him up and I said, Mike, I said, don't forget the Snowgates. And he started testing them, to his credit, and people loved these things. And so we started a petition drive to immortalize this thing as an ordinance. Got 8,400 signatures in about 6 weeks, and went to a vote, and it won by about 76%. And now our city loves these things. So I will always say, Staggers is the grandfather of Snowgates. We can't forget that. But he would take your hand, he would help you. He cared about the people. He put people first. And so I'm so grateful that he was a friend and that he served us so beautifully, so humbly, so loyally. So those are my words for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other counselors wish to speak on this? Counselor Neitzer?
Yeah, I'd like to read what I wrote on Facebook, but before I do that, I'd just like to reflect that when I started going to council meetings in person, this was just as an audience member, somewhere around 2010, 2011. Obviously, Kermit was elected, I believe, in 2012 and served through 2016. So I was there throughout, and I spent 4 years at meetings, going to almost every meeting. And I would talk to Kermit before or after. And what I'm going to remember most about him was his smile and his laugh, without question. And what I'll also remember is that we would debate policy issues, because he was a policy wonk, I was a policy wonk. But it was always so friendly. He was a personification of being able to disagree without being disagreeable. We'd leave with a laugh, a handshake. He was just such a great guy. And so we would debate the issues, and we would just walk away friends. And that's the way it should be. And with that, I thought I would just read what I had posted on Facebook last week. Kermit Staggers was a wonderful public servant, but more importantly, a wonderful person. He had principles and he consistently stood by them. He listened, he engaged. What I loved most about him, though, was how he treated those he disagreed with. He debated issues and policy with a smile. Never one to attack the character of those he disagreed with. Never one to insinuate or imply. No ad hominems. He debated policy vigorously, but respectfully. Whenever we discussed issues, it was done with a smile and a handshake. I'll remember his smile and his laugh. I'll also remember the way he made me feel. As they say, people may forget what you said and did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And he made me, and I know others feel listened to, respected, and cared for. Thank you for your service and your kindness, Dr. Staggers. Rest in peace.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did not know Mr. Staggers real well, but I met him on a number of occasions, and was always a gentleman. But the thing that I remembered was the last time, in his last meeting, and some of the counselors that were on their way out of office, all said a few words, and he had talked a little bit about how the focus of people is a lot of times always on national and sometimes state politics and headlines, and everybody that always kind of gets the glare on the headlight and the spotlight. And he said so often we forget about what important role the city leadership and council and government plays in our lives. Everything from the water that we put through our coffee in the morning to brush our teeth with, to shower with, to the roads that we get on and drive to work, and the infrastructure we drive by as we get to work. And he had a very, very astute observation, 5-minute speech about that, and it was something that stuck with me and really gave me kind of a heads up as I was headed into service within a couple of weeks of that too. So that always kind of stuck with me. So we certainly thank him for his service and send prayers to his family. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kiley.
Thank you very much. I served with Counselor Staggers for 2 years on this council. Counselor Staggers served his community well and served his constituents and supporters for over 20 years in his various positions with state and local governments. And I respect him for never wavering from his convictions and for the professional way and respectful way in which he always conducted himself. I will keep Counselor Staggers, his wife June, his children, and his brothers and sister in my thoughts and prayers.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also served with Kermit Staggers for 2 years, but I got to know him several years before that. He was my professor at USF in government. And so through that time in the class, he had such a love for local politics. We've heard it said previously, but we all saw it when I joined the city council, and there would be 8 to 15 students sitting in the audience until the very end to get their 5 to 10 points of extra credit. And we all laugh about that today, but that's how important maybe those 5 or 10 extra credit points were to those students, but it was so important for him to see his students, sign their paperwork, and make sure that they learned something about their local government. And here I'm living proof sitting here today at this dais because of the impact he had on my life and getting people involved. And so may he rest in peace. He served the city well as the state. I know it's hard and we will all miss him, but our thoughts and prayers are with you, the family.
Counselor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the thing that I had the privilege of doing is Kermit was a member of the same Kiwanis Club as I was. So we had a chance to share many meals together. And the thing I'll remember not only is his love for local government, but the love for his family and how important they were to his to him, and that the way he treated his family and made time for them and was part of it. And we did also be able to go back and forth on policy a few times. In fact, in the legislature, I had a chance to try to lobby him, and he was a man of his convictions, that's for sure, no matter how good of an argument I thought I had. So he'll be missed, and he's been quite an asset to our community as well as his family and friends.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Brecky.
I had I was fortunate to have a dual relationship with Kermit. My first experience with him in June was back when I first came to Sioux Falls. We were all members of the Hilltop United Methodist Church, and that was when it was a really tiny church. It's what now is its assembly hall was the entire church, and so we had that unique experience of actually building a church, of actually scooping the dirt and building the larger church around it and watching a church grow. So that was, something that was just a special experience that I shared with all of those fellow Hilltoppers early on. And then later, as my career ended up in the city attorney's office, and then 2 years of that time period, Kermit was on the council when I was there. And that was when this form of government was really young. And he was constantly debating me and challenging me as the city attorney as to the proper role of the city council. And he had multiple complaints about the council being a rubber stamp, and he kept, telling me they're not as active. Everything is just brought to them, and they're expected to just rubber stamp it. And I don't want to be a rubber stamper. And we'd have these debates and go round and round about, it is the job of the council to set policy. But I said they need to rise up and they need to assume that job. And that is your job. You're right, Kermit. But then you need to do that. And it was interesting to me then when I came back and ran for office. One of the things that I have been championing since I got here is the idea of long-range strategic planning led out by the council in that policy-setting role. And I floated that idea by him because I said, Kermit, I think I finally get it. I get what you were trying to tell me. The council needs to be, needs to really assume that responsibility, exercise that, but we need a mechanism to do that. And I floated that idea by him, and I said, what do you think? What do you think if we actually engaged in a long-range strategic plan, and we actually led that out in a joint cooperative effort with the administration, with the mayor's office. And I said, would that do it? Do you think that would do it? Do you think that would lift the council up to its full policy setting role? He said, yeah, Janet, I think that would work. I think you've got it. And so that is my mission I'm still on, and that I'm here. It's actually that there's an amendment before the Charter Revision Commission. If anybody wants to testify in favor of it, they're going to be talking about it December 11th. And it's something I'm going to continue to try to champion in my years here on it, because I do believe that will help us achieve a greater level of policy setting that really is the job of the council, and it's what he dreamed of. And so that was really re-encouraging to me, because for years we went round and round on that, and it was like the grandfather of political science saying, "Yep, you got it right," and so. I'll continue to try to champion that mission, not only on my own behalf, but in his honor.
All right. Thank you.
If I could say one more thing.
Yes.
And one more thing about Kermit. He was a staunch, devoted Republican. And as his family reported at the funeral today, he always had Fox News on. Even when he was in hospice, he had that Fox News on. And I'm a Republican, and he got me involved as a precinct person in the Republican Party. But Kermit loved all people, and he realized that in this city council entity, we are nonpartisan. We are here to serve Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. We're here to serve Christians, Jewish, Muslim, whatever. We're here for everybody. And Kermit did that. And there were Democratic lobbyists and legislators who loved Kermit. And he would step outside the box and peer. In fact, they tell a story about how Governor Janklow kind of gave him a head wrap because Kermit stepped outside the box and voted with the Democrats. And so you got to respect that guy, that he was an independent thinker. He didn't just color inside the box, but he did what was right in his heart. And I think that's what we all need to be doing, whether it's the city government, state government, national. We need to be doing what's right. So just had to put that 2 cents in too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Counselor. We'll move on now with our agenda. Item 4, we have some awards and recognitions. And I believe, Albert, are you going to be leading that conversation tonight? All right. And while they're coming up, I'd also like to recognize Den 3, Troop 371. Shout out to my boys over there. Thanks for being here. Stay as long as you'd like. All right, fellas? All right. And with that, Sean, I'll give you the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. If you could come forward and join us when we actually hand over the awards, that would be great. And we have a couple of awards to give out. They're stone plaques. We are Sioux Falls Beautiful, a group that's dedicated to advocacy for things that are beautiful and good sustainable gardening and landscaping practices throughout the city. And that's always been something we've done for, the last 25 years or thereabouts. So anybody who's interested, look us up on Facebook at Sioux Falls Beautiful. And Terry will read just a short snippet about each of the projects, and we have kind of a short slideshow to show you a little bit about how beautiful these projects are.
First, Sioux Falls Beautiful's Award for Beautification Excellence in the residential category. Patricia and Terry Comstock are conscientious stewards of their urban property. Their deliberate attention to soil quality and permeability contributes to their success in growing diverse trees, shrubs, perennials, and a healthy lawn, while minimizing stormwater runoff to the Big Sioux River. In their front yard, Terry assembled a large raised flower bed using a load of quartzite slabs and another of good topsoil. Colorful perennial and annual flowers change there throughout the season. In the backyard is the highlight, a private oasis with a pond at center stage filled by stormwater collected from the roof by way of a rain barrel. Collected water also services ornamental planters, and excess stormwater flows to the permeable lawn. The pond attracts myriad dragonflies and is in constant use as a bird bath. Water lilies, water lettuce, and hyacinths organically keep algae at bay. Pat and Terry also tend a wide diversity of perennials, trees, and shrubs, including weeping white pine, flowering crabapples, a fat Albert spruce, and a vegetable garden in the backyard. A privacy fence displays a potpourri of vintage metalworks that Pat finds at rummage sales and antique stores. The beauty of Pat and Terry's urban space lies in the seasonal changes of gardens surrounding a large pond, which contribute to wildlife, butterflies, and birds. But the beauty of this urban oasis goes far deeper. With 40 years' experience in golf course maintenance, Terry understands the importance of permeable, productive soil that retains storm water, thereby mitigating the runoff to our river. When mowing the lawn, the comstocks leave the grass clippings to add organic matter to the soil and reduce the need for artificial fertilizer applications. They add wood mulch and compost from food scraps and garden waste, which also increases the carbon content of the soil. They fertilize their lawn minimally, and when they do, consciously sweep the excess fertilizer from sidewalks, driveway, and street so it doesn't wash into the Big Sioux River. And again, they reduce storm water runoff via the rain barrel. Join us in thanking Pat and Terry Comstock for setting an outstanding example of urban land stewardship. Our second award is for beautification excellence for the non-residential category. The Raven Terrace has transformed an underutilized riverfront property into a vibrant space that engages the Big Sioux River, expands and enhances the existing Big Sioux River downtown River Greenway, provides a unique venue for hosting public events, and is home to the Arc of Dreams sculpture. The project was also designed as an event, meeting, and break space for employees. A restructuring of Raven Industries led to the renovation of the downtown facility from manufacturing into the corporate headquarters. The site reflects not only modern technology and sustainable innovations, but also embraces the historical context of downtown Sioux Falls and the site's natural history. Native Sioux quartzite stone has been used on the site in both an architectural and a natural outcropping application. Prairie wildflower plantings have been included as an informal transitional edge to the waterfront and stormwater filter. Sustainability was a priority goal for the project. Rainwater catchment cisterns reduce potable water use for site irrigation. The site and building project is LEED Gold certified. Join us in thanking Raven Industries for their contribution of the Raven Terrace to the River Greenway. Margaret Carmody, could you come forward?
That was close.
All right, Pat and Terry, Raven, thank you for being here, and congratulations on that. Let's move on to the next item on our agenda. That's item 5, which is our consent agenda approval.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Excuse me, when is it appropriate to make a motion to remove something from the consent agenda? Would I do that now?
Be right now. We need a second. We'll
second.
get a second from Councilor Kiley. Motion by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Kiley and Councilor Brecky.
Moved, or I'd like to pull item 15 for separate discussion.
Okay. From our contracts. All right. Any other changes, council? All right, we'll take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Yes. Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
All right, that passes 8-0. We're on to item 27, which is our regular agenda.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
All right, motion approved by Erickson and seconded by Selberg. Any discussion on that, council? We'll take a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
All right, that passes 8-0. We're at our general public input portion of our agenda tonight. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person, and in total last no more than 30 minutes. During general public input, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear later on in the agenda. For regular agenda items following general public input, comments are limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item under consideration only. This time, I'd like to invite anyone forward for public input. Clerk, please note our time is 7:27. Good evening.
Evening. Christopher the Living Man here. I had time for just one more meeting and wanted to make a formal goodbye since half the council was absent last time, and also because I haven't got much left to pack. When Verizon first announced its list of the first 20 cities that would be getting 5G, Sioux Falls wasn't even on it. I have to wonder what had to happen to get it there, considering there are about 200 or so more important markets. So I came to the reasonable conclusion that it was probably picked because it was believed that its population might be a bit slower to catch on and act when it came to what might really be going on. More so than, say, California, who is fighting 5G tooth and nail. I would like to say that the people here may not be in the know as much as their brothers and sisters on the coast, but I believe they're smarter and not as ignorant as you may think they are. Mr. Harris here, for example, knows maybe as much as I do, as do all of my more recent acquaintances, such as Sioux Falls' next possible mayor, Mr. Zakaitis, Joe Sneed, Bruce Daniels, and others, thanks to my keeping them appraised of world events concerning 5G. I've also had plenty of time to meet and educate others who are certainly looking into it. Before I leave this city for good, I will say this. I've encountered many citizens in this city who recognize me for who I was, and know this, that almost none of those people are even the slightest bit afraid of me, no matter how hard the media tried to demonize me, nor do they hate me at all for anything I've tried to do. Some have even gone out of their way to thank me and shake my hand. Almost all saw what happened for what it was and knew that I had been done wrong. So I believe you had better give these citizens more credit than what you have. I only wish I could be here the day they come knocking on your door after they find out what you've done to them in their city. But I'll be in a land far away with a smile on my face and a drink in my hand where there's no snow and certainly no 5G as yet. I figure by the time they do get it there, the rest of the world will know what it's really about and will have stopped it. They are already doing so in certain places here and in the rest of the world. Me, I'll be satisfied knowing that the city's citizens will certainly know who to hold accountable for it. I only hope it won't be too late for them. In my last few seconds, I'd like to tell you folks that my last Facebook profile, with a maximum 5,000 Facebook friends, was shut down by our mayor while I was in jail. He told Facebook I was bullying him because I posted a letter on my timeline that mentioned his name. This I could see for a kid 16 years or younger, but I believe our mayor here might be a little old for the bullied position. Or maybe not. By the way, I started a new profile after my release. There's another 5,000 friends on that. The truth will never be silenced. Good night.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hello. My name's Elizabeth Bruce, formerly known of Sioux Falls. I'd just like to take a moment and say thank you for thank you, folks, for allowing the mayor and the city and the police department to put my husband in jail for wrongfully. So I have to walk the dog all the time by myself, do all my own shopping, cook all my own meals, and do all the housework by myself for 2 months. I also like to thank you for over the $1,500 I had to shell out for him to buy way overpriced items in jail and make phone calls to me every day that cost me $3.25 per minute for 15 minutes. I especially wanted to thank you for giving him more of a record so he couldn't get a job for what might have been 2 or 3 more years, causing us to leave the country. I thought this was a nice city when I moved here. I see I was completely wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Riffle. I'm an advocate for the homeless and displaced persons. Last time I was here, I was pretty upset because it was the anniversary of my two adult children's birthdays and death dates that ran 2 weeks apart in concession of each other. I am appalled that our city has blew $184 million with the Housing and Coalition. Talking about Kermit Stagger, he was a friend of mine as well. He was with me from the very beginning when we started this homeless situation and homeless organizations in town for well over 10 years. I think sometimes y'all ought to listen to what he was saying. He was a good man, and he never let me and my people down. So I'm asking you, don't let them down either. Find a way to make up for the loss of that $100 and some millions of dollars, and find a way to give people some shelter downtown. I'm only one person, and again, I told you this before, I didn't see any of you all down there. But when I am down there, they ask me where yous all are at. And I just say you're sitting in your seats. So I ask you to make a change in whatever you're doing and think of somebody else's time instead of your own self, and think of the mistakes that you've allowed our government to make with the siding on the Sanford building, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how many mistakes y'all have to make before the city people get tired of it, but I'm one. I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it, and I'm really disgusted at my city council and county commissioners for the lack of concern and fixing what all you've allowed to happen that was wrong. You haven't done a darn thing. You haven't even said you were sorry to the people of our community. How many people did you allow to die in those 10 years that committed suicide and jumped off the bridges? So I just want you to think about that. You've hurt a lot of people. And I'm sorry about that you're my city council. Good night.
Thank you. Good evening. Anyone else this evening? Good evening.
Good evening, Bruce Danielson. I've been here before with the book off the counter, which I thank the clerk for at least putting this out so he doesn't get arrested for not having the agenda and some of the information on here for the meetings. As the county auditor up north was arrested for not having everything here, I want to point out in here, we've got some contracts in here that we don't have any information about these contracts. We don't know what they are. We have no way to find out what they are. They're not posted on the website anywhere. And there's nothing for us to be able to come and do here tonight because you're going to pass the consent agenda without any of this information. And there's a $3,000 contract on here, and we have no idea what it means. We don't know what it's. We're going to get a bunch of stuff for the pavilion. This doesn't make any sense. We got a $1,500 contract there. We got it up to sanitary landfill. Had I been able to get any information on this one, I'd like to tell you some stories about what's going on with that program that people have talked to me about. that there's some real issues here with that contract. And we have nothing to work from based on this minuscule amount of information. I can't even get it out of this book that should have all of these contracts in here every week. That 190-page contracts that you get that are hard to even go through, that you don't even get posted so we can find them, unless we have to ask a council member or somebody to be able to get them to us. We don't have time to get all this, especially after a big vacation weekend that we've just had. So I just, in light of Kermit Stagger's and his efforts constantly to open up this government so that we, the people, could actually have some say in it, be able to ask you questions that are intelligent questions. He asked us questions that nobody else would ask, because you people all get your red notes. We don't get any red notes. We don't get any cheat sheets for the meetings. So we have to ask and hope that somebody gives us information. Kermit, at that time, was the one we could consistently ask to get more information out of this body. And he gave us whatever he was allowed to get. And he was not offered a lot of the information during those years. And it was very disheartening to watch people like Kermit and Greg Jameson and a few of the others struggle to get information out of this city government during that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Greetings. I'm David Zokaitis. Can you rotate that tomorrow, please?
We don't control that up here.
We can show it. So anyway, I'm here to talk about the bike trail and how we can design it a little bit differently to reduce the flooding on the bike trail and to increase the utility of our wonderful bike trail. All right, now, our bike trail that goes around the city, it allows us to get close to nature. It's beautiful. It gives us some exercise. And that's also good economically in that it encourages workforce development and it makes the city more attractive. It's also good for just getting places. Now, there's some design constraints with a bike trail. It's close to the river, close to streams, and waterways need to flood. Well, and if it floods too much, then you can't use the bike trail. But we only have so much money, so how can you resolve all of these disparate conditions? Well, I think what we should do is raise a few parts of the bike trail a few feet so that at least we can use it when it floods every spring. It should be easy enough to do that. And even better would be to raise more parts so that it's good, like for a 10-year flood. Yeah. But that requires a little more planning and a little more investment. Okay, so some parts of the trail flood every year. We might want to put them up on a low berm, but this would require some coordination with federal agencies. And if you pick up the bike trail, you've got to allow floodwaters to go through it, so you might need some cover. And there's a few spots on the bridges where you can't go through sometimes, and if you had a little detour, raised up a little bit, I think that would make quite a bit of difference. So here's an example. You know, we only need a foot of elevation, and that would work a whole lot better. And you can't see way over here, but if you raised it up a few feet, you could still squeeze under the bridge, and people walk on that one side. Go ahead, please, here. Here's a spot where you could, raise it up, and that part of the bike trail would actually be useful in the spring. Okay. Oh, and of course, you got to find something to smile about, even if it's cold outside. So with that, I bid everybody a good evening.
All right, thank you. Good evening.
Again, I'm JJ Johnson. It's great to see you guys again. This is my second time speaking in front of you and better learning what it takes to be a city leader. I understand the time and dedication it takes, so thank you for your contribution. I'm here again to represent my nonprofit, Katie's Open Door. As a short refresher, my nonprofit works with the homeless and displaced people in Sioux Falls. First, I want to start with some accomplishments and wins that we've had recently, and then I want to discuss some opportunities. In partnership with our Facebook community and state and city resources, we were able to secure temporary housing for a disabled homeless person named Sparky. Before we stepped in to help Sparky, he was bound to his wheelchair with a broken back. He was often found sleeping and even defecating in his wheelchair seat on 8th Street across from the banquet hall. We're happy to report that Sparky has found temporary housing and actually has a traveling nurse that helps him as well. One of my partners, Catherine Riffle, was instrumental in getting help for Sparky and getting him off the street. Another win for us was providing food for the mission during a period of time where their cook quit on the spot. Teaming together with our Facebook community through advocacy and working with local restaurants, we were able to provide nourishing, pre-prepared meals for 7 days while the mission found and trained a new cook. Although we accomplished a few great things, there is still much that the city needs to help tackling issues like homelessness, drug addiction, and mental health issues. There are a number of new local nonprofits that have been trying to tackle these issues on their own, and they are severely underfunded. Nonprofits like Washed Clean Ministries offers transitional housing, low-income housing for drug addicts with programs like workshops and Bible studies, but they often run out of finances at the end of every month. Since the city has identified that our homeless population has grown and even gotten worse, why not appropriate new funds to these new nonprofits? Continually to support and uphold organizations that aren't offering new solutions is affecting everybody negatively. And if there's a new coalition that's forming, I'd like to be a part of it. Another thing that I've identified is eliminating barriers and offering Wi-Fi hotspots in the low-income areas downtown. Bigger cities like New York City offer free Wi-Fi in subways and public parks. By doing that, we can equip the homeless community down there and the low-income people with Wi-Fi so they have better access to using the phone, so they can keep a job and then better educate themselves using the internet.
Thanks, JJ.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Tim Stagger. Sioux Falls will miss Kermit. Kermit was a person that stood up. Whether you were rich or poor, he wasn't afraid to sit down and talk to you. If you didn't get on, if you weren't on his page, still he'd sit down and talk to you. I met Kermit when I was going up to Pier. I went up to Pier for 8 years. You don't have to go to school to learn how this state is run or the city. You go up to Pier, and it only takes about 2 sessions, and you figure out why they don't get nothing done and how corrupt it is. Because if it isn't the good boy system, then you don't need to go to college to figure it out. If it don't pass in the Senate, it'll pass in the House. If it don't pass in the House, it won't pass in the Senate. That's how they play their game out there in Pier. Sat there and watched it for 8 years. But then when Kermit became a city council person, I came down here. I've been coming down here for probably 14, 15 years now. And Kermit told me, he says, Tim, he said, you want to open up your eyes? This city council is no different than up in Pier. And you know, he was right. Picture perfect. Because if you were against something, you were the black dog. Kermit was known as Mr. No. Well, I'd rather be called Mr. No than a rubber stamper or a puppet. Because I'll tell you what, if you can't make a decision on your own, then you shouldn't be sitting on the city council. Another question I have is on the last snowfall we had. People ask me, why didn't we have the road graders out? I came home at 3:30 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the road graders, what they were doing is pushing sand around. There was absolutely not a stitch of snow on that road, but they had to put their plow down to make it look like they were really doing something. I would like to know how much money we wasted as a city on the last snowfall that we brought out the city snowplows. We had more snow on the streets now than what we had back when the snowplows came out. My other question is, since we have a meth epidemic in South Dakota, why is it that the mayor and the governor get on a plane to California and tell California that we don't want your drugs anymore? Because the drugs are coming in from the cartel out of California. I have sat down with several drug dealers that have been busted, and they come out and they straight say it. It's coming from the cartel straight out of California.
Thanks, Tim.
So let's do something about it.
Anyone else this evening?
Sioux Falls. So Mr. Aaron McGowan is resigning, and I had told y'all this before. I have sat in his office to get people prosecuted on crimes, Ken Cutler on down to everything else in the book that he would not prosecute. Worked vigorously with the police department and with him to vigorously prosecute high-profile people. So now, eventually, he's resigning, so that's good. So hopefully we can get a prosecutor that will prosecute people and will not play favoritism here. I want to tell y'all how corrupted this state is. And not only the state, but we have the Ashley Madison website. And I want to stress, because I'm viewing this Ashley Madison website, and I have a list of people from A to Z. Ashley Madison website might be a dating site, swingers, or whatever to venture out into your marriage here. But I want to state this, and I'm going to put this out to the public here eventually. The police department nationwide has busted people on this website for paying for prostitutes. Ashley Madison is known for human trafficking here. We have people from the Capitol that is on this list paying, that are married, all the way down to your pimps of Sioux Falls. I have the list from A to Z. Florida, Texas, they're pulling it up too. People, high-profile people on Ashley Madison paying for sex. I'm going to stress, and I'm going to stress again, and I'm going to work with this police department until I'm vigorously working with this police department to vigorously prosecute these people. But you cannot go on Ashley Madison. I don't care if you're married and looking for a partner, a swinger, whatever, and pay for sex. I don't care. I have caught a lot of Johns on there, and I'm stressing right now, I don't care who they are, but I'm going to start exposing the rich people that is going to this site that is known for human trafficking, because I'm watching it on here, and it's paying as a member for this Ashley Madison. You can go to plentyoffish.com. There's other dating sites you can go to. But when you're going to go to a dating site that is nationally known for prostitution and human trafficking, we got a problem here in Sioux Falls. It's really absurd. Now, I've talked to some legislators that was on that list last week, and they told me their credit cards got stolen. I told them that I would be pulling up this list, and when I catch people joining, I'll be the first one to post it, and their picture, and their account, and everything on Facebook, because this is ridiculous. We got to stop the sex trafficking here in the city of Sioux Falls here. It is unreal, the sex trafficking here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening for public input? Good evening.
Yeah, Stephen Ciano. Back to Kermit Staggers. I watched him when, many years ago, before I had the nerve to come in and air my dirty laundry, my complaints about the treatment that I've gotten by people in apparent conspiracy, and that has included city, county, state, federal, and private. As I've said before, now he was the one who stood up for fiscal responsibility, and I have cited that also. I've made the point that contractually you people are obligated to serve the public, not to serve each other, not to serve your particular big business or other interests. And I do see that religion is politics. I I'll change my subject now to when I grew up so you understand where I'm coming from. I was told, do no wrong and then tell somebody when you do something wrong. And I said, how about I just do the first? And I stuck with that. I just serve my fellow person, and if we all take the time to look beyond the physical, we can see that we are each other's, everyone is our brother and sister. We are all connected, and we all need to serve each other, regardless of what our position is. And we need to use our position to serve our fellow person. And if you want to get to the legal aspect of it, you're big into ritual. I don't do rituals, religionist rituals. I had an associate years back when I was fighting for the welfare of children, who was Catholic and said that my beliefs were ethical culture. And yes, indeed, it's about doing good regardless of what your religionist affiliation is. And Kermit had it right, and we can all do what's right, and I hope that you people will start doing that. That is your contractual obligation to the public. Bye.
Thank you. All right, clerk, we'll move on to our next item, please.
Next item is subsection 15 off the consent agenda for contracts and agreement. City attorney, legal services, provide legal opinion to the city regarding the city's retention policy. Boyce Law Firm LLP, not to exceed $1,500.
Councilor Brecky.
Do we have some from the city attorney's office to speak to this, or should I just ask my questions of the city attorney?
Just go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I pulled this off the agenda because it is a matter of interest to me. First of all, I wanted to know what of the retention policies this related to. Was it employee retention? Was it, retention of public records? What of the retention policies, is the subject of the contract?
It's related to our email retention policy. The city has a Barracuda software program that stores our emails, and so it's a review of that and the policies associated with it.
And is that subject to state law, or is that just an individual city policy?
I think it's both.
And I'm wondering, why we have to go out to outside counsel. What's the nature of the opinion that we're asking, counsel to provide for us? I understand, when there's areas of expertise like bond counsel gives opinions, but to me, an opinion on the, on a records retention policy that's our policy, that would be the job of the city attorney's office.
Well, it's not a function of capability. What this is a project that as we've gone through with the city on the administrative side as far as how the city manages meetings and identifies projects, this was one that was identified within the city attorney's office as a large-scale project. That through that process, I determined that from a managerial point of view, it's more cost-effective and time-effective to obtain an outside opinion on that, because it's either a 90-day project within the system, or it's one that I could farm out for a modest amount of money that we could obtain a timely opinion as we look at how you maintain those records, how long you maintain them, and then as you go through and look at all the other aspects of retaining those, for example, an existing pending litigation and future litigation, how all that comes together. It was basically in the city's best interest from a managerial and administrative point of view to farm that out for what at the most is going to be $1,500. Because as you know, I manage 9 attorneys, and so we're always in a constant value analysis of how best we manage our attorneys' time. And this is for one that, for a number of reasons, I decided was most effective to be obtained by outside counsel. There's the ability to rely on that. And there's also simply the fact that this being $1,500 or less, it's well below the state law bid limits for even disclosure, but it's one that, by virtue of the fact that it's a city attorney contract, any contract goes before the council.
Will it be shared with the council, and is it a public opinion?
Well, the opinion will be one that will be attorney-client to the city so that we can rely on that for purposes of how we handle emails and their potential disclosure and subject to the South Dakota Rules of Civil Procedure and Discovery.
So again, will it be shared with the city council?
Sure.
Okay. I'll explain to you my concern, and I still have the concern, and that's why I raised it. This sent up a red flag for me because I have had conversations with at least 3 individuals, and most recently a 4th, that have complained about their ability to get email records and other city records when engaged in civil service proceedings. These conversations were related to me prior to this administration. So let me make that clear. There was a practice where when employees were being terminated and they were seeking to challenge the termination, as they have a right to do, a right to appeal it, that records were being deleted after they had started the appeal proceedings. And, you know, that when legal proceedings were started, that after the 321 notices were filed, that records were being deleted. So I'm extremely concerned about it. I raise it as a matter of public policy. I think that if we're reviewing our policy, you know, in light of those concerns that I have, I'd like to have that done as part of the council process, have the council involved in that, because if we're looking at, you know, an opinion about the existing policy and what it is, I think, you know, if it's state law, if it's, you know, if we want to get involved and pass an ordinance to make sure that we do not allow this to happen in the future, if that indeed was happening in the past, I think it's something that we should be a part of.
If I can comment on that, first of all, this is the first I've heard of that. I would share your concern in that regard, and I think that frankly validates the purpose of this contract. But again, this is the first I've heard of that, but certainly something I'm willing to look into. But frankly, I hadn't heard that before. So.
Yeah, and I wanted to explain that's why I pulled it. I do think it is a public policy issue. I would hope that you would share it with us, and if we see the need as a council, you know, and with recommendations from the city attorney's office, you know, to improve our policy as a result of this opinion, I'd like the whole council to be a part of that. So whether, you know, and I don't think it's a private thing. I think it's not a litigation thing. It's not a contract thing. I think it's the kind of thing that can be done publicly to make sure that the city has a good, fair policy in place.
Well, and I agree, and I suspect that there is a policy in place that addresses that in city ordinance, but it's certainly, in light of those facts, something we look at how the law applies to that. So,
Can I get a motion on this item?
Move to approve.
Second, Selberg.
All right, motion by Kiley, seconded by Selberg. Any other discussion? Let's take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
With that understanding, yes.
Erickson? Yes. Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Next item is 29, deferred from the meeting of Monday, November 18th, 2019. 2020 renewal of package liquor license for Walia Convenience Store, 812 East 10th Street, pending motion from the meeting of November 18th, 2019. A motion made by Councilmember Erickson, seconded by Councilmember Nitzert to approve the 2020 renewal of a package liquor license for Walia Convenience Store, 812 East 10th Street. Item 30 is a new 2019-20 retail malt beverage South Dakota Farm wine license and 2020 retail wine and cider license for OG Greens LLC. OG Greens, 421 North Phillips Avenue, Suite 111, CUP not required, pending final inspections per building services. Item 31 is a transfer of 2019 retail liquor license and 2019 packaged liquor license from Vanguard Hospitality LLC, Minerva's, 301 South Phillips Avenue, to Vanguard Hospitality 1, Minerva's, 301 South Phillips Avenue. Item 32 is a transfer of a 2019 retail liquor license and 2019 packaged liquor license from Vanguard Hospitality LLC, Grill 26, 1716 Southwestern Avenue, to Vanguard Hospitality 2, Grill 26, 1716 Southwestern Avenue. Item 33 is a transfer of 2019 retail liquor license and 2019 packaged liquor license from Vanguard Hospitality LLC, Maury's, 2507 South Shirley Avenue, to Vanguard Hospitality 3, Maury's, 2507 South Shirley Avenue. Item 34 is a transfer of 2019 retail liquor license from Vanguard Hospitality LLC, Turks and Caicos Cabana, 5001 Southwestern Avenue, to Vanguard Hospitality 4, Turks and Caicos Cabana, 5001 Southwestern Avenue. Item 35 is a transfer of a 2019 retail liquor license from T180 Development LLC, Tavern 180, 2101 West 69th Street, Suite 107, to T180 SF LLC, Tavern 180, 2101 West 69th Street, Suite 107. Item 36 is a new 2018 packaged liquor delivery license for Willikers Incorporated, Willikers, 3625 West Devera Drive. Item 37 is a new 2019-20 retail malt beverage license, South Dakota Farm Wine License, and 2020 retail wine and cider license for Thunder Road of Sioux Falls, 201 North Kiwanis Avenue, CUP not required, pending final inspections per building services. Item 38 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine license for the Multicultural Center of Sioux Falls, 515 North Main Avenue, for a chef cook-off on December 7th, 2019. Item 39 is various retail liquor, packaged liquor, and retail wine license renewals for 2020 to be operated at various locations in the city of Sioux Falls, identified as Exhibit E.
Hi, Jamie.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. I'm here to answer any questions on items 29 through 39. I do have a request for an amendment on item 36. I apparently took a step back in time and put new 2018 license when that should really be a request for a new 2020 license. So I apologize, and if you would be so gracious to fix that for me, I would appreciate it. Item 39 is an exhibit B of all the renewals that have failed a sting in the past renewal period. There are 6 individuals here tonight to speak to those items, and so however you want to handle that, I'm here to help. So,
All right, thanks, Jamie. Is there anyone from the public here to speak on any of these items tonight? If there are, you just make your way to the front as someone finishes up.
She said it's attached to 39. Started. Greetings. I'm David Zokaitis, and I'm here to talk about agenda item 29 and about an alcohol renewal license, and even a little bit about alcohol in general in a social context. See if this thing works.
Just a reminder, this is not about alcohol in general. This is about these exact items. So
Indeed.
Please make sure they're related to the item on the agenda.
They certainly will be.
Okay.
Well, you know, alcohol, it's popular and it's profitable, but it tends to make trouble. And that's why the general context is relevant, because alcohol makes a lot of trouble and it's a popular but harmful drug. And alcohol doesn't exist in isolation. It exists in a nasty web of social.
I'm going to say, you have to address these specific renewals, not alcoholism. This isn't about alcoholism. So get to the point on the agenda.
It's coming. It's coming. Now, Waldia Convenience Store, it's near a homeless shelter. Their license is up for renewal. And as was stated in the last meeting, it caters to a homeless population, and that makes trouble because they like to get drunk and pass out, and they may have a lot of service calls. And this is related to the precedent with Wiley's, as I conversed with a council member about a few years ago. They had a lot of calls, they had a lot of trouble, and I think what happened there is the city recommended fewer drink specials and renewed the license. So the important point is that if you have trouble with an establishment that sells alcohol, you try to reduce the trouble, and chances are the license will be renewed. That's the precedent. Now, I'm kind of recommending something similar because that's been the precedent. The city could clean up the neighborhood, maybe with some trash cans. The convenience store might go around and look for litter. You might try to get them to not sell quite so much of the cheapest booze, and hopefully everything would work well after that. And there's some big picture issues that would address the smaller picture issues, and I think the city should try to take care of all of these. And then I'm done.
All right, thank you. Anyone else here to speak on any of these items? Sir, do you want to come forward? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Thanks for your service. You got a lot of tough decisions to make. I know that. My name's Dave Jansa. I'm a lifelong citizen here in Sioux Falls. I've been working in the addiction field for the last 10 years, but like you, Greg, and our former counselor, I'm kind of a policy wonk too, but on a pretty narrow issue. I've always been very interested in how folks like you can address addiction, and especially alcohol addiction, with policy. And there are a lot of things that you can consider, and hopefully I'll stay on point here. The CDC, in their top 3 recommendations, asks policymakers to look at outlet density as a very, very primary reason or cause to try to reduce mitigation when it comes to addiction issues, homelessness, and such. And I think that's what we're talking about here tonight. Specifically, I want to address the location, because I know pointed out in the last meeting was that was one of the statute recommendations from the state, was location and then the personnel. I just feel that this should not be renewed. If we had to point at one specific point, would be location. It's a half a block from probably the state's most vulnerable population when it comes to addiction. It's a half a block away, and it sells almost exclusively extremely inexpensive, high alcohol content liquor. Mayor, I appreciate your vision for a triage center. It's wonderful, it's needed. It's what we in the policy wonk world of addiction call a downstream need. What we're talking about here tonight is an upstream thought or vision. So regardless of what the council does here tonight in regarding this single license for Walia, I want you to consider expanded visions on what you can do with policy on a broader scope regarding alcohol harm. There's a lot of data out there that will guide you, but I am in opposition of renewal. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Starr.
Before we go, I was a little slow on the draw, and I apologize. For item number 29, just as a point of information for people who are offering public input, the applicant has asked for us to defer the item to December 17th. I know a lot of people have come out tonight to talk about it, but they're going to get another chance on the 17th as well. So would it be in order for me to make that motion to defer now?
Certainly, and if, certainly.
And then
if
we could
defer-
take public input.
Correct, yeah.
If they want to on the motion
I
to
think
defer.
that would be fine. That would be fine. If you want to put that on the floor, we can.
I would move to defer item 29 to December 17th, 2019.
Second, Erickson.
Okay, motion by Councilor Starr and seconded by Councilor Erickson. And I know that applicant is here, and that's your desire as well, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
I discussion on that, then go ahead.
Absolutely. And I don't like deferring these things, especially when people have come out on a winter night to discuss them. I wish we had a better way. The applicant did send us all an email earlier, or last week during the holiday. They've made some good points of how they'd like to address it. And I want to give them the ability to do that. One of the things that they did discuss in their letter to the council asking for the deferral was having a community meeting and to get a chance to get the neighborhood together again, as well as some additional security things. And I want to give them the time to at least do that. What we aren't doing is extending their license. Their license still goes till the end of the year. Even if we took action tonight, they would still be able to sell till the end of their license period. So we're not putting off, I was going to say stopping the issue, but I want to be, as we're open to it. So all we're doing is giving them the time, another 2 weeks, and I'm not happy about it, but it's a pretty serious thing that we're considering doing as well as part of that. So giving them the time, if they're willing to work with the neighborhood and continue to do that in the letter that they sent us, I want to give them that opportunity.
Okay. Any Councilor Neitzer?
I just want to get on record that I personally have seen documentation that shows me that this applicant has been aware of problems and has been unwilling to address them, and so I'm not interested in deferring this. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay. Councilor Staley?
Well, and as far as public input, I see some people are making the gestures as if they're going to leave. I think that what would be appropriate is to have the applicant explain to the public why they want it deferred, what they're planning to do. And then I think it is appropriate, and I did talk with Tom Greco about our city clerk, about allowing people to maybe comment on why they may not think it should be deferred, and we should vote on it today. And that comes back to giving some information as to why they think this should be denied today, if indeed that's what they think.
Okay. Well, let's do this then. Let's have the applicant come up and speak to why they're asking for the deferral, and we'll go from there. Good evening.
People of Sioux Falls Council.
Good evening.
So I want to. How about now?
There we go, man.
Great. Okay. If somebody can get this up for me. Oh, okay. Yeah, flip it. Go. Okay. So we understand that.
Can you state your name, please, sir?
Oh yes. Okay. My name is Michael Alamu. I'm son-in-law of Alma Fisha, who is the proud owner of Wally Convenience Store.
So you're not an owner, just a spokesperson for the owners?
I'm speaking for my mom-in-law right now. Got it. You can bring her up if you choose to, but okay. I'm speaking in regards to the plan we have set ahead. We've sent you an email. We sent you all an email last week, and I'm here to brief the public on what that email was and what we are planning to do, essentially. Okay. So we know that alcoholism is a serious issue, and alcoholism within vulnerable populations is an even more serious issue, right? And so the issue at hand is larger than our store. We, as proud owners of, as proud holders of an alcohol license, have never sold alcohol to be consumed on our premises. Okay, we have never sold to minors. We have never had violations of alcohol of our liquor license. To that effect, we have came up with changes, and we have came up with changes to our operation. And these changes, we have decided upon these changes due to the concerns raised by our neighborhood and businesses, right? So one of the things we're willing to do is we're willing to onboard security staff. We've talked with the director of the Bishop Dudley House. She has far more experience in dealing with individuals of the Bishop Dudley House and how she gets them to do certain things. And we're working on onboarding security within security personnel that are part of the vulnerable population. Essentially, the director tells me that if an individual turns of a certain age in the Lakota population, they are highly respected within the members. And then she tells me if they hear something in Lakota, they will obligate. So we're working on vetting and onboarding security staff, basically hiring individuals from the Bishop Dudley Center to help us out with this. We're also removing inexpensive and high concentration alcohol from our shelves. We're gonna start with that and possibly move on to removing all canned alcohol, right? And then we have in the past reduced our working hours. Our store used to be open until 10. Now 2 years ago, we've noticed, now the owner of the store is almost, she's a middle-aged woman, right? She noticed that a majority of issues that happen around the area happen during the hours of 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So she cut those hours out. On top of that, she put up signage, but those signs kept getting stolen or ripped. But now we have been trying to work with members of law enforcement, but due to the situation being, due to the past week being a holiday season, we have had a hard time getting meetings with people. We've also We're also planning on meeting with some of you to come up with a town hall that we can actually talk about this. Like, so this issue we're facing has been plaguing our society prior to Walia, and will keep plaguing the society after Walia store, right? So we want to talk about this and figure out what we can do as a community to solve this problem once and for all. Taking away our license essentially will push the problem a block further. An alcoholic or an addict will seek their fix regardless of where it is. They will look miles for it. They will go and will come back to that same shelter that they reside in, right? So what we're asking is for you guys to defer this decision till the 17th, till we take these actions and apply them to our business. And then, I mean, if you decide to vote today, you can take a promise for us that we'll do this. But if you do give us the time until the 17th, you will see actions. And that's all I have for you.
All right, thanks, Michael. I'm going to ask you to just hang out for a second and see if any counselors, you got any questions for Michael while you have him up here? Did you have a comment?
I actually, Michael, and Jeff Eckhoff, if you could come up here for a minute.
Thanks, Michael.
Starting this summer, there were conversations with business owners and some homeowners and these nonprofits about the issue of the problem of these vulnerable populations. Was his business included in those emails that were sent out? To your recollection, Jeff?
Go ahead.
Because we had, and I know that we have the gas stop. I think there's some people from the gas stop over on Cliff that are here. They were included. They came.
Is that the list that you circulated or the one that we sent?
Well, and then there was, I think, Grant Howman kind of did another one that when we had those different meetings. So this business wasn't included in that.
I can't recall off the top of my head.
Okay.
I have to look.
Because, communication is important, and I mean, in fairness to you, I will say that the other stakeholders in that area had a voice in this to be able to hear the problems and to be part of the discussion.
Indeed, and we have heard that there were meetings, but we weren't invited to them, but we have heard that there were meetings, and we were quite offended that we weren't invited to these conversations that pertain to our business, and we weren't even there to defend ourselves or take advisement.
And you should have been invited to those meetings.
And we weren't.
And so I'm hearing you say that in the next, we got, 2 weeks? In the next 2 weeks, you're going to try to have that kind of a connection with these businesses?
Yes. We actually have been trying to go and talk to each individual that complained on the 18th, but we weren't able to reach them due to the fact that last week was a holiday, simply. But in that time, again, as I said, right now we're trying to work with the Bishop Dudley House to vet individuals that would help us take this loitering issue away.
Are you going to be paying those individuals?
Yes, and to bring another topic to this situation, we're not villains here, right? My mom-in-law, Almaz Fasad, the woman you see over there, is a hardworking individual. And she even pays individuals from the Bishop Dudley House to plow her snow. They call her mom. She's not selling them poison. They just happen to, certain individual, 1% of those individuals that stay at the Bishop Dudley House tend to pass out and drink alcohol all day. And that's not our problem, just saying that.
But am I seeing here on your list that you are no longer going to be selling those high-potency tallies?
Yes, those giant 14% alcohols, so 14% concentration alcohols will be removed from our racks. We are in the process of removing some of them right now, and we will, in all, remove them all from our shelves by the 17th.
And then you will no longer sell those?
We will no longer sell them, yes.
And I'm wondering, Jamie, is there some way, would you come up here for a minute? I mean, if this would be accepted, does he have to put that in writing, or is this just a gentleman's handshake?
Well, I mean, there wouldn't be anything by state law that the license that he has there's nothing in the license that requires him to remove those from his shelf. He's allowed to sell those because of the license that he holds. So I guess that would be up to the council if you wanted to have them do something saying that they wouldn't do that. But by
we can write that
state
in
law,
somehow.
they would be allowed to sell those.
Thanks. Other comments or questions? Counselor Erickson.
Yeah, stay close, Jamie. I don't know if this is for you or for our city attorney. My question is this clearly isn't just a problem that happened in the last 6 months. This has been an ongoing issue of dealing with the complaints and the loitering and the alcohol being consumed on property. So it's not a new issue, but it's to the point now where it's this or your license is going to be revoked. So my question is do we have as a council some tool or opportunity to say, okay, we're going to give you 90 days. And in 90 days, if you have violations, if your shelves aren't cleaned up, if you haven't done this, if you haven't done that, whatever those stipulations are, then your license is gone. Do we have that authority as a council, or is it yes or no on whatever date that you come in front of us? And I don't know if that's for you or for Stacy, but probably Stacy.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, when you renew a license, it's for the full year. So at renewal time, you as a council have the option to either renew or not renew a license. So,
and that's really unfortunate. It'd be nice for us as a city to have, if somebody's not playing by the rules, to have some sort of authority to say, hey, look, this has been a problem. I don't care which business it is or whatever they've sold. Just hypothetically saying someone sold underage to somebody 3 times in 3 months, maybe they're not responsible enough. And I'm not saying that's this particular license. I'm just using an example of what do we have? What tools do we have? We have a yes or a no. And it's really too bad.
I don't know if the city attorney wants to add or Keith wants to add anything to that, but.
No, I don't. Oh, go ahead, Keith.
Keith Allenstein, City Attorney's Office. Yeah, unfortunately, case law is pretty clear that once you issue the license, you have no power to suspend or revoke. That lies with the state. As far as the exact example you gave me, I believe if there's more than 2 violations of underage within a 24-month period, I believe that is something actionable by the state. Other types of liquor law violations are actionable by the state, but your role lies in making a recommendation, and it's up to the state. So you cannot grant a license for 90 days, and if you don't like it, have the power to pull it back.
And you can't add stipulations either.
I
mean, he can give us those stipulations, and we can have a gentleman's agreement here.
If you have no power to suspend or revoke, putting a condition on there is, you've issued the license, you have no power to suspend or revoke.
All right, thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Kiley.
As a point of order, I'm not certain that it's clear based on comments that were made here by council members this evening that this deferral is going to be granted, that it's a done deal. So I suggest that we go back to proper procedure and take public input.
What I plan to do is if the motion to defer fails, we'll open up public input because we'll be voting on it and we'll continue to hear input on this. So right now we have the motion on the floor to defer. So is there any other discussion we want to have before we vote on that?
Well, in that case, I would like to ask Michael, what is the point of the deferral? It seems like you're asking us to defer just so that you have 2 more weeks to implement this. I guess I was under the impression that you still were developing a business model and a security plan more detailed than what you have shown us here this evening. What is the purpose of the 2-week deferral? What do you hope to accomplish with an additional 2 weeks?
With an additional 2 weeks, we hope to accomplish all the things in the list. And we are still coming up with ideas. We have to speak to businesses within our neighborhood. and when we have to have conversations with law enforcement to come up with better plans, to come up with modifications to our business model. Within those 2 weeks, we'll have a better idea of, we have a good idea right now, but we'll have a much more concrete and better idea how to solve this issue at hand.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Counselor. All right, seeing no other discussion, let's take a vote on the motion by Counselor Starr and seconded by Counselor Erickson to defer this item to December 17th.
Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
No.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzert,
No.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
No. All right, that item passes 5-3, so it will be deferred for 2 weeks. So we're on to the remaining items in that, items 30 to 39. And let's get a motion on the floor for those, and then there's a couple pieces of business on that.
Move to approve items 30 to 39?
Second, Starr.
All right, motion by Kylie, seconded by Starr.
I'll make a motion to amend item 36 by replacing 2018 with 2020.
Second?
All right, motion by Erickson and seconded by Kylie on that. Let's take a vote on that, please.
Okay, the vote on the amendment, Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson, Kylie,
Yes.
Neitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
Okay, so we have the amended motion to approve those items, and one of which is item 39. In the past, we have asked for if any counselors want to address any of the folks that are here who have had failed stings in the past. Now would be the time to do that, so I don't know if you want to give the floor to anyone on that. Counselor Erickson.
Thank you. So I've been doing council for 6 years, and I always find it interesting that those that fail liquor licenses, we ask you to come up and go through the process of what happened during your failed sting. If it was you, your employee, what you're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And also us looking at the convictions in the past as far as if there's been any additional sellings to minors. We've got 6 this time, which is really sad in my opinion that we have that many as we've started to talk about alcoholism and all the issues surrounding it. So we're going to go through the list. So we'll just kind of start at the top, and then each person, I guess, probably the same questions will apply to each and every one of you as far as that's concerned. So the first one we have is the shopping cart northeast at 2701 East 6th Street with a violation. If the representative for that could please come forward. So, and I'll say, just so it's stated for the record, this was one conviction in 2019. There has not been any other convictions at all stating in our chart from 2015. So I'd just like you to talk a little bit about this. However, I will note that there are 2 other sales to minors in 2017 at 2 other places. I'm not sure if you were in charge at that time or not, but if you could just address the council as far as.
Good evening. I've been in charge since I was 8 years old, I think. Been in Sioux Falls
State your
doing
name,
business.
sir.
Dave Grevlis.
All right, Dave.
Thank you. Yes, we've been in Sioux Falls for 50 years, and I'm a hands-on owner. And I'm proud to say that I believe we pass in the 90% of all tobacco and alcohol stings. That's a good record. We get every time we pass, we get a letter. I got stacks of them. And nobody says anything except for congratulations from the city police department. And then when one of my employees decides that they don't care that evening, then I have to come up and beg for my life. This is a daily thing for me. Again, I'm proud of our record. When you have multiple stores and you have high turnover in this industry, you start overtraining people. And the training that we do is stringent. And I get involved and I sit them down myself after they're trained and I tell them how important it is to follow these rules. And that you know, they're not scared to get fired these days. It's just a fact. And until the employee gets the brunt of the penalty, this is going to be an issue. They get their wrist slapped, and we pay a $1,000 fine and have to come here and beg you guys to understand what it's really like out there. In a normal day, we are carting all day long, and the typical scenario is a regular customer that comes in often has a new employee there, and the new employee does not know them. And our policy is if you don't appear 50 years old, you get ID'd. So then they don't bring their ID because they come every few days, and then an argument ensues. I come here all the time. I left my ID at home. If I'm in earshot, I step up and I defend our employee every time. And they don't buy it. I can't be everywhere at once. I have good managers. Again, this is a nonstop thing for me. So what you want to hear is what we're doing to prevent them. The thing I did with this individual, he was one of my best employees. And when I got the call, I really was shocked. And of course, I fired him on the spot. Have to do that. Next day, he called me and said, I got an idea. I met with him, and he said, here's what happened. I came to work, and I had other things on my mind, and I just was in a fog. And when he did not even card this 20-and-a-half-year-old young man, didn't even ID him. He even seen the undercover police officer in my store. He recognized him as a customer, and he just didn't put two and two together. He had no explanation why he did that transaction, none. So I thought of something. He said, let me train your other employees of what happens when you let your guard down. Because he knows that this is one of the worst things you can do to me. So I said, let's try this. So he's now my trainer of new employees about how mad Dave gets at you. And you have to be thinking every time there's a tobacco or an alcohol on that counter, you got to be thinking all the time. This is a responsibility that we promised to do. And so technology-wise, 2 weeks ago, I added a scanner on my first system that actually works. The IDs in South Dakota have been hard. I've tried every trick in the book with multiple machines. I brought them to the council and showed them, and then they fail, and then they don't back them up with the technology. I have a system now. I tested it today, and it's part of our point of sale. You literally scan the ID, and it either allows a transaction or it doesn't. All the employee has to do is do that. I can't be there all the time to make sure they do that. If they don't, things can be bad happen. They get weeded out, and I come here and I apologize. But I guarantee you, you got my word, I take it seriously. I took up too much time. Everybody else has their stories. That's mine.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Mayor. The next one that's on our list is the gas stop number 104. Is there someone? Oh, sorry.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. Alan Erickson II, go by Kurt, so call me Kurt. District Manager for the gas stop. We have 11 stores in Sioux Falls, 18 throughout the state and Minnesota. We have over 200 employees that, are subject to carding throughout the day. We sell a lot of cigarettes, we sell a lot of alcohol, a lot of beer. Anyway, long story short, each one of our employees go through a certification through LMS, Learning Management System. They can't sell anything until they pass. And we also use a system that's called BARS, being a responsible retailer. They come in twice a month and they try to buy either alcohol or cigarettes. They're individuals that are between 21 and 40 years old. Our policy too is 50 or under. Their policy is 40 and under. If my employee sells or attempts not to card that purchase, no matter if it's cigarettes or beer, they get a red card. A red card would constitute in a write-up and be retrained. 2 red cards within a year, they're fired instantly. Now that's their program. If they get a green card, we reward them with $25. I send out a weekly email to all our employees to make sure we are prepared every day for every individual 50 years and under, so they won't sell to a minor. Once again, Dave and I have been friends for a long time, and we talk about this all the time. And it is tough being a retailer when you have so many items and so many folks that, we have great employees. I'll stand up for each and every one of my employees. But when they make a mistake, they make a mistake and we have to pay for it. The owner of the gas stop, it makes his skin crawl when we fail a sting. We have, like I said, 11 stores in Sioux Falls. We failed one sting last December. Blake was a good employee. Attractive young lady came in, purchased some beer. She wasn't 21 and he failed. We fired, he's no longer with the company. So long story short, we take it very seriously. It isn't easy, believe me, I wish it was. But that's, any questions?
Thanks, Kurt. All right, appreciate it.
Next one is J&K Quick Stop on 1200 East 10th Street. The next one after that will be Booze Boys Discount Wine and Liquor, followed by King's Liquor Mart, and then the Brazilian Carnival, followed by Booze Boys.
Good evening.
Crystal Berkman, I'm the owner of J&K Quick Stop, and we have one store. We've owned it since January 1st of 2013, and this is the very first time that we've had an employee fail. And he was new, he'd only been 8 days on the job, and he was immediately fired, just to set the tone for the rest of my employees to know that when I say you fail, you're gonna get fired, and I'm serious about it. Every time that they do pass, they receive a $50 bonus on their paycheck.
If I could.
Any questions for them, Counselor Starr?
No, could just explain how your training process goes then and what the expectations are as part of that?
We have scanners on our cash registers, probably have had them for 3 years now. So they're all trained how to, scan an ID that, the person is of age, how it's gonna go through, and then to show them that when you scan one that is underage, it won't even let the transaction go through at all.
And then the policy is to fire immediately if they fail?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Next to our Booze Boys, I don't know if this is the same owner as Booze Boys Discount Wine and Liquor and Booze Boys Liquor Depot. The first one's on Cleveland Avenue, the second one is on West 12th.
Yes, Robert Wentz, I am the owner of both stores. So both employees got fired on the spot as soon as we found out. We have in our employee handbook, I know I sent the paperwork in, that they actually have to sign on the employee handbook that if they fail a liquor sting, that they will be fired on the spot. So all of the employees are aware of the situation, how important it is to card somebody. Been in business 15 years on the RW Liquor, 12 years. This is the first time I've ever been here. But like I said, we're going forward. We keep doing what we've been doing. We're going to start making them, everybody be TAM certified. So
That's something you currently don't do right now?
Nope.
And I will note that of all of the people that we've had up here today, not just so it's clear for the record that I don't show any convictions previously. I just want to make sure that's known for that.
Okay, any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
King's Liquor Mart. The location of this one was on North Cliff.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Jay Sim, runs King's Mart Liquor Mart at the Cliff Avenue. The employee we have here for 5 years, he passed actually 2 other liquor sting, and then somehow this time he failed. And we had talked with him, and he's been a good employee for us for the past 5 years, so we did not fire the guy. We just figure everybody does make little mistakes here and there. And as a business owner, we do talk to one another, to other guys. It's just one of those things where we have all the training process, we have a scanner thing going on, but like I said, one moment they decide to sell it for no reason, and that's why we get busted. And our policy is real similar to all the stores. If they pass, we give a reward for it. And of course, if I had an employee on hand for 6 months, we've done that before about 6 years ago. If they fail within 6 months, that we do fire them people because we figure they're not worth it for us. But this gentleman, particular person, passed twice, and then the third one he did not make it. So that's where we're at.
All right, Jay. Questions for Jay? All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Jay.
Next one is Carnival Brazilian Grill.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ben Schemp from Carnival Brazilian Grill, and we failed our liquor sting last December. We acknowledge that we failed it. We've been in business for 14 years, and that was our first stint that we ever had, or our first failure that we ever had. We'd been stung before, but that was the first fail. It was an employee of mine, one of those off nights. He was a semi-seasonal employee, kind of just getting back in the swing of things on a winter night. A little busy, but no excuses there. He did fail the liquor sting. What we did is we did not fire him, but we suspended him from being a bartender or a server. So he was in a reduced role in the kitchen. So he still stayed on the payroll, unemployment. We just didn't have him selling alcohol to any guests for 4 months. When he came back on, we retrained him. I sat down numerous times with him, showed him an over 21 ID and under 21 ID so we could tell the differences, all that stuff. Most of our service staff was E-TIPS certified in 2015. Those expired this month here in 2019 December, so we're all TAM certified now. We just finished up a round of training on that. So those are a lot of the steps that we move forward with after the failure. And the biggest things that we kind of re-implemented in our training book is that if there's any situations that the server or the bartender is just not comfortable with, whether it's an intoxicated guest or checking somebody's ID, if they just don't feel comfortable, please come and find the manager, and then the manager can deal with the situation. And the biggest policy change that we made was any vertical ID just goes directly to manager. In the state of South Dakota, all vertical IDs are under the age of 21. But we don't care if it's just a South Dakota ID or in Iowa or Nebraska or New Hampshire. Any vertical ID goes directly to the manager. So that way we have a double balance system to double check that ID card. So.
Interesting. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ben.
I do have a couple questions for Jamie, if I can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Jamie?
Jamie, if you can just give us an idea of how many stings are done annually in Sioux Falls, approximately. I mean, is it 50 stings and tobacco and 50 in alcohol, or if that's information that's not shared because it's a surprise? I mean, about the process a little bit, or maybe it's Keith. I don't know who wants to answer it.
I honestly don't know the answer to that question, and I know that that is something that's probably kept, not written in stone, I guess, so it is a surprise. Maybe every other month, every third month, I know that they do them. There's certain quadrants of the city that they do at certain times. That's all I know about it.
I mean, not to make light of anything, but just, if they're doing 10,000 stings a year and 6 fail, or I don't know. I just was curious because, and I don't know, do the tobacco ones come in front of us? Any tobacco failures come in front of us that are done by the PD or no?
No, not to my knowledge.
Because I think that would be interesting to know as well for us when we talk about suitable person, suitable location, that if you're failing liquor stings and tobacco stings, does that go hand in hand? I don't know, but I think that information would be important for us to know, just to correlate if there's a pattern of some sort.
Counselor Kiley?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I appreciate the individuals that were here this evening, and I appreciate your efforts. One of the things that really resonated with me was the comment about it's not difficult for these individuals to go on and get other jobs. And that is the type of market that we're in right now. Everyone's looking for employees, and the employees know that, and they can just hop from one business to the next. My question is, to aid these individuals when they're hiring new employees, is there any way that you can check to see if that employee has had a previous violation on their record for selling to underage? Is that information that's available? Keith, can you address that?
Keith Allenstein, City Attorney's Office. If they were willing to pay for a criminal record check, they could certainly do that. I think it costs about $25, $30. Any ticket that would have been issued and the results of that ticket, whether involved a conviction, dismissal, or whatever would be available to anybody that ran that criminal history.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, this evening, we didn't hear of any cases where it was a repeat offender and nothing was done, so I see no reason why we would deny renewal for any of these individuals. Once again, we do take this seriously, and I think the sting process does serve an important purpose. It keeps everybody on their toes, you as well as your employees. So thank you for your efforts. And now knowing your policy to card anybody that looks under 50, thank you for carding me consistently.
Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Councilor Kiley just hit a couple of points I was probably going to bring up too. I always have mixed emotions at these things because you do get some folks up here who own numerous businesses. They can't be everywhere. And it is a pretty tough job market as far as getting loyal employees. And yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those where it's something we have to do as a city. If we didn't run these programs, it's a problem that would definitely spiral out of control. So it's something we have to do, but we kind of get where you're at. And if there were people here that were here constantly and getting repeat offenders and that type of thing, then I'd really, be concerned. But I mean, again, I don't think it's any of our intentions to have business owners come up here and in any way try to embarrass you, but it's something where we do try to hold everybody accountable and set an example for what we're trying to do here to keep this program going as best we can. But I certainly have always appreciated entrepreneurs and business owners in this city, and thank you for what you do.
All right.
Did we still need public input for this?
Oh, yeah.
Do we take,
I don't know.
we could take public, I guess we cut off public input on the deferral. So Councilor Neitzer, I'll let you chime in though first. If you have.
Are you sure?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I did have a question about 37 if the applicant was here. That was the Thunder Road item?
Yep, Ryan.
And I did read the plan, and so I just wanted to just because I'm just trying to visualize it, because you're doing a new addition, a building, and so my only frame of reference coming out of, the last several summers is just what you've had before. So just give me an idea where the alcohol is going to be and how that's kind of going to work.
So we're actually we're building a 30,000 square foot indoor building. So we're going to be doing obviously all year round business. So there's a restaurant that's a part of that, which actually has a completely separate entrance, which would be the primary location that we'd be doing that in. But we're also going to have 8 lanes of bowling that'll be a part of it as well, and that would be one of the other main locations that we'd be doing that. So
is the licensed premise essentially going to be the confines of that building? It's
correct.
Alcohol will not be.
The only other, there is an outdoor patio on the restaurant side that would be, for outdoor seating for the restaurant as well.
All right, so that's how it's being controlled. It's within that area. Okay, that's all I need.
And that'll actually have a fenced area as well on that. So.
Okay, great, thanks.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Nope, appreciate it, man. Councilor Starr, thanks for that oversight. We will take public input on any of these items if there is any.
That's what happens
All
every
right.
time.
If not, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion on this? Are we ready to vote? All right, we'll take a vote.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 40 is the second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located north of West 47th Street and east of Southwestern Avenue from the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban and RA1 Apartment Residential Low Density Districts to the RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District number 11297, 2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
Albert, you killed this party, man.
Yeah. Mayor, Council, thanks for having us out tonight. Albert Schmidt, Sioux Falls Planning Office, here to go over these rezonings with you tonight and a few other items. This one here is with an applicant of Lifescape, and the owner is Greta Carter. It's located at north of West 47th Street and east of Southwestern Avenue. It's approximately 0.37 acres, and the purpose is to construct a 2-unit community residential home for Lifescape.
All right, thanks, Albert. Anyone from the public care to speak on this topic tonight? All right, counselors, do you have any questions for Albert on this?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Selbert.
Okay, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion, council? All right, let's take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale? Star?
Yes. All right, that item passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Item 41 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located south of West 12th Street and west of South Ellis Road from the AG Agricultural District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban, RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban, and RE1 Apartment Residential Low Density Districts, number 11271, 2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant owner on this one is Doug Allen with Allen Homes LLC. It's located at south of West 12th Street and west of South Ellis Road. It's approximately 42 acres in size, and the purpose is for a new residential subdivision with single-family, townhome, and apartment residential. Also should note that there's a preliminary subdivision plan that goes along with this later on in the meeting.
All right, thanks, Albert. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Councilors, do you have any questions for Albert on it?
Move to approve.
Second, Nitzert.
All right, motion approved by Kylie and seconded by Nitzert. Any discussion, council? Let's take a vote, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale? Star?
All right, that passes 7-0. We're on to 42.
Item 42 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 3920 South Hawthorne Avenue from the RA1 Apartment Residential Low Density District to the O Office District, number 11270, 2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant owner on this one is Brent Newgard with the Celebrate Community Church for the Northwest District of the Wesleyan Church. It's located at 3920 South Hawthorne Avenue. It's approximately 1.62 acres in total. And the purpose is to rezone this to build 3 small retail RE1 form buildings on the property.
All right, thanks, Albert. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Albert on it? Motions?
Approval.
Second, Kylie.
All right, motion approved by Selberg, seconded by Kylie. Discussion? We will vote, please.
Councilmember Staley? Yes. Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale? Star?
Yes. Passes 7-0. Item 43.
Item 43 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located west of Highway 11 and south of East 57th Street from the AG Agricultural District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar LW Live Work RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban RS Single Family Residential Suburban Districts, number 11237, 2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant and owner on this one is Brady Hyde with Pals LLC. It's located west of Highway 11 and south of 57th Street, just kind of south of the 5th Street access to Harmadon Park there. And the size is approximately 117.41 acres, and the purpose is for a new subdivision consisting mainly of residential, single-family townhome and apartments with some commercial and office along 57th Street. Please note also this one has a preliminary plan to go along later on the meeting as well.
Thanks, Albert. Anyone from the public here to speak on this topic tonight? All right, councilors, questions for Albert or a motion to make?
Move to approve.
All right, motion approved by Kylie and seconded by Erickson. Any discussion? We will vote.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. Item 44.
Item 44 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at northeast corner of West Madison Street and North Valley View Road from the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density O Office C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar Districts to RS Single Family Residential Suburban RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban Districts, number 11135, 2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant is Lath Herbold with Signature Companies. The owner is Clint Ackerman with Aspen Heights LLC. It's located at the northeast corner of West Madison Street and North Valley View Road, just kind of west along Madison Street, west of Marion Road. The size is approximately 16.43 acres. And the purpose of this is to replace apartments and office and some retail land for more single-family and townhome residential land development.
Thanks, Albert. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have any questions for Albert on it? Councilor Neitzer.
I only just wanted to note that this has been an area that I've kind of just had a watch on because obviously my district, there's people that live there that have always wondered what would happen there. It's one of those rare down zones, but knowing how that area is building up, I'm not surprised that this is probably the better market for it than what this is. And whoever lives there is going to be close to a new high school. So I will move approval.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Any discussion, council? Let's take a vote, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Milberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 45 is a second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, declaring certain real property of the city surplus and approving offer to purchase and development agreement.
Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening, councilors. Jeff Eckhoff, Planning and Development Services. Dustin's pulling up the presentation. Item 45 is the approval of the second reading of the sale of the rail yard redevelopment land to Jeff Surslick. And Jeff is here tonight if we have questions as I conclude my presentation, as well as Dustin. I'd like to start by thanking Jeff and Ann for their investment and their confidence in downtown Sioux Falls and their leadership in the development and the quality that they've provided to us and the quality that we're looking forward to in this development. This particular item comes to us in three parts. It's the surplus of the land, which of course we do before we transfer any land, the acceptance of the offer, as well as the approval of the development agreement. You may remember as we sell land, there's a development agreement that goes with that, and we'll walk through that in a little bit. As a project overview, as a reminder, it's a $14 million project, 71,000 square feet, roughly 7,500 square foot of office and retail. What did I do, Dustin?
Broke it.
Killed it. There it is. I broke it. I won it. This is the view from May Street. That'll be the retail portion and the office portion on 2 levels. It'll have 42 apartments that are on 3 levels. The things we like about, as a reminder about this particular development, obviously the character and the experience and the track record that Jeff brings to the project, but we also like the leverages and builds on development in that area. As you can see, this is the view from a top, what it'll look like next to the East Bank development that the Howe family is putting in. It'll help activate that activity as well as 8th and Railroad across the street and the Frank and Crane buildings next door. Nice activity going down that way. We like the fact that it's moving east and then continues to push into the core of the Whittier neighborhood. Just to review the offer itself, this is the second part that you would approve. The offer is for a little over 1.5 acres. The offer price is $10 a square foot, which equates to $678,700. That the city will retain a strip on the right hand, on the east side. You can see there where the trail will go. Our commitment is to build the berm, landscape it, but we will not actually build the trail itself until the connectivity to 6th Street is there when the second parcel to the north develops. The development agreement is the purchase agreement is the third part of this particular item. It talks about the developer's responsibilities to develop the site, to take ownership of that. It outlines what we expect him to build, the 3.5-story mixed commercial, the number of square feet, which he's going to exceed, and the type of that there's access cross easements with his neighbors. It also talks a little bit about the timelines. We expect him to begin construction by June 1st, unless we have the mother of all winters. I'm sure Jeff will be in there much sooner than that, and substantial completion by the end of next year. There's some provisions that if for some reason we got to the next year and nothing was done and the land was bare, we have the option to repurchase at that time, and that gives us that right to do that within the development agreement. And finally, it talks a bit about the city's responsibilities with regards to building the trail in preparation for that as we get that stage for the development that will come at some point to the north of that. And that, in a nutshell, is the offer, the development agreement. And Dustin is here if you have further questions, and of course Jeff is here as well.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for for Dustin on this? No questions. We're excited about it. I know our administration's excited about it. I know you put a lot of work into it, you and Dustin, so thank you guys. Would someone like to make a motion on this?
Move to approve.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion approved by Kylie, seconded by Brecky. Any discussion, council? All right, let's take a vote, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Congratulations, Jeff. Next item, please.
Item 46 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, declaring certain real property of the city surplus and approving an option to purchase.
Thank you. Item 46 is the option to purchase Lot 2, or what is referred to as Lot B in the rail yard redevelopment plan. It's the land immediately north of this site and bordered on the north by 6th Street and to the west by Charapa Place. And working title for this has been Charapa 2. The option is for 2 years and gives Jeff the opportunity to assemble the tenants and put the project together with a price in mind so that he can go ahead and put his pro formas together and then make it work for the tenants that he needs to attract. And it's big projects that take a while, and so it's a reasonable expectation for him to have that amount of time to pull this project together. It gives him a price that he knows he can work with going forward. It's at the same price of $10 a square foot. The final square footage to be determined based on the trail and what happens and how the development actually lays out. But for now, the option is on the entire parcel, which is about 2.1 acres. And while we're at it, I also would like to call out and thank Stacy's office, particularly Danny Brown and Diane Best, for their work. There's a lot of things to go into selling the rail lot that's extra, and they've really done yeoman's work on it. So thank you, Stacy.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Anyone from the public want to speak on this one? Councilors, do you have any questions on this item? All right, look for a motion on it.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion approved by Kylie, seconded by Nitzert. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll vote, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 47.
Item 47 is an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving an easement to Sprint Communications Company, LP.
Hey, Dustin.
Good evening, Council. Dustin with the Planning and Development Services Department. A few weeks ago, we were here for first reading discussing an easement that we would be granting to Sprint Communications across all the parcels of the rail yard property. So tonight, we're here at second reading looking for approval for that. One note is that just earlier today, we were notified that one of the references, or a couple of the references on the Exhibit A that's attached with the ordinance had some distances that were not correct. And so we are asking for an amendment to the ordinance tonight. Looking at Section 2 of that ordinance, we would be requesting that the first sentence be changed to that the mayor is authorized to execute such easement after it is ratified and executed by Sprint Communications LP, which is substantially the form on file with the city on the date hereof, and with such necessary and appropriate variations as not material inconsistent with such form as determined by the mayor and consultation with the city attorney. The easement shall be filed with the city clerk and recorded with the Minnehaha County Register of Deeds. So ultimately, there was just a small error on the exhibit. What this amendment to the ordinance would do was just allow us, after we get the exhibit changed, to allow the mayor to sign that exhibit other than the one that was in the file. The exhibit that was actually of error is the one that's on the screen right now. Ultimately, everything on there is correct except two notations of just distances on there. And so that's what we would be looking for the amendment to do.
All right, thank you, Dustin. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have any questions? Councilor Brecky.
Yeah, I'm still just a little confused because that language is so unique that we're going to actually change the contract. You put in language that allows you to change the contract after you sign the contract? Why don't you just amend the contract?
What we're asking is that the mayor be able to sign the ordinance with the new exhibit.
So it's an ordinance.
So what we're asking for approval is an ordinance to grant an easement to Sprint Communications. What we need to do is change the exhibit that will be recorded at the Register of Deeds. And so basically what the current ordinance states is that we're authorizing the mayor to execute the easement in the exhibit that's been presented. But because we need to amend that exhibit, we're just what we're asking is that the amendment to the ordinance would authorize the mayor to basically sign the ordinance with a new easement or a new exhibit that would be substantially similar to what, just with those modifications that we need to have made.
I'm sorry, I'm really having a hard time with this because I don't understand.
Can you turn your mic on?
I don't understand why we don't just amend it. This is very strange to do this way, and it seems like something we shouldn't get in the habit of doing, because it allows a correction to be made after we've taken official action. Usually when we do corrections, we make the correction in the official action. So I don't think we can do it this way, is what I'm trying to say. And maybe it's because I'm not understanding it, but it feels to me like we just need to bring back the exhibit and amend it officially as a council action.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Erickson?
I have some of those same feelings. It feels a little weird that we're going to go ahead and say, yes, approve, and then we're going to allow something else to be changed afterwards. Why not just delay it until that new exhibit is here? We can present it with a new exhibit, amend it, and sign it when it's official, and we're actually voting on what is here versus saying, go ahead and do it tomorrow.
What I would note is really what we're asking for approval for is the ordinance that's granting the easement. The exhibit is something that's just recorded and registered at the Register of Deeds, and so all we're looking to do is amend that exhibit. And the way the current ordinance is written doesn't allow the mayor to do that. And so what we're basically asking for is just allowing us the ability to amend the exhibit that's recorded. What the city council is actually approving is the ordinance that grants them the easement that's correct in the exhibit, but just the references are minor amendments that need to be made. If that makes any sense.
It's still, I still don't think we can do it this way. I think we have to, because I don't think we can, because we're not being specific in here. We're just saying, you know, why can't we do it as one? Why can't we, I get the ordinance, but there's an exhibit attached to the ordinance, which makes it really part of the ordinance. So why can't we get the correct exhibit and do it all at once? Is there a time issue here that is there something?
There's a couple things. I mean, I do have I can show you exactly what the two changes will be to the exhibit so that you can see them. I can bring them up on the screen. But we are trying to get this approved. A couple things with just this property in general is this is actually the tract that we're selling to Jeff. And so it just helps clean up some of the title information that we would be finalizing when we close on the property with Jeff Scherschlick that we just approved as part of that. So again, Tamara, can you bring up the projector? So the one change would be changing 55.4 feet to 53. And changing 17.55 feet to 21.42 feet. These were discovered by the surveyor. Ultimately, what was done was the survey was correct that they had completed. They just pulled the wrong numbers from the CAD file when they put this exhibit together for us. So they're actually in the process and probably have it completed already, the changes to this exhibit. We just weren't able to get it uploaded onto OnBase so that we could have all the information available for you here tonight electronically.
Can I offer a suggestion, and I'd ask the city attorney if this would work? I think we should just put that language in instead of the language, instead of this, what's in quotations here, with such necessary and appropriate variations as are not material inconsistent. Just say that we're going to change those two numbers, just what you just said up there, and make the motion that way. And then it's actually, we're taking action that actually is doing what we say we're going to do.
So I'm looking at the language here, and you're talking about the not materially inconsistent language you'd want to.
Yeah, the right after and, it says, and with such necessary and appropriate variations as are not materially inconsistent with such form as determined by the mayor in consultation with the city attorney. If we know what the two changes are, why can't we just make the motion to make those two changes?
I don't see that as problematic as I sit here. I mean, when you look at it and the way the language was drafted, you know, what it's trying to address are two minor errors contained in the reference notes, and like was discussed regarding the fact that you'd be amending the ordinance. I don't know that making those two changes, if there's a problem to amending that to address those two changes. You know, I mean, at this point, it's generally allowing for these two variations and maybe 601 half does of the other.
I
don't know that you're
I would like to make that motion. If you would.
Let's get a motion on the floor first, and then we can amend the main motion. So you want to make a motion to approve the item?
I move to approve item number 47.
Okay.
Second, Erickson.
Seconded by Erickson, and then you want to introduce
if you would help me with the language, just pull it back up there. And my motion to amend would, you know, delete the phrase, and with such necessary and appropriate variations as are not materially consistent with such form as determined by the mayor in consultation with the city attorney. And in place of that,
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
That's not currently in the ordinance, so that was our recommendation for
Okay.
the change. So
But it's in our motion, so I'm going to delete it from our motion.
the motion to approve would have been approving the ordinance that was sent out, which states under section 2 that the mayor is authorized to sign the above reference easement agreement after it is ratified and executed by Sprint Communications LP. That's all it states. So what you're reading is what we recommended as a change. So
In place of that change, I'm going to put, and just put and as amended. And then if you put that back up there, as amended by changing the language in exhibit.
are you talking about this?
Yeah. In what is that, exhibit A?
Yeah.
Yes.
As amended by changing the language in exhibit A from 55.40 feet to 53.00, and scroll up, by changing 17.55 feet to 21.42 feet.
Will that work, Dustin? Can we massage that to make it work?
Yes, and those I believe that we can make that work, and those changes would be on page 10 of the Sprint easement agreement.
Second. Sorry. All right, there's a motion by Councilor Brecky on that, and seconded by Councilor Stacy.
One of the reasons I want to address why the language was the way it was is it was intentionally left broad so that if Sprint, basically, if there's an issue with Sprint, there's some flexibility there to adjust that. This language will work if you want to stick with that, but that was the purpose of the original language, as opposed to this, just to leave some flexibility in the event there's some issues with Sprint. But
Yeah, I realize it could be more onerous, but I just think it's a bad practice to leave contracts in such a way, or ordinances in such a way, that they could be modified after the fact without any limitations.
All right, well, there's a motion and a second on that. Is there any other discussion on it? All right, let's vote on that amendment then.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0, so we're on the amended main motion. Any other discussion on this, council? All right, then let's take a vote, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Item 48 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota by revising boundaries for voting precincts as set forth in Section 38.003 of Chapter 38 Elections.
Good evening, Tom Greco. This is a second reading for some precinct changes that will affect the Northeast District and the Southeast District, specifically 411 and 27, and then 213. I'll cover those each in detail in the next two slides. So precincts 411 and 27, basically what this does is that it accounts for a recent annexation, which is highlighted in blue on the southeast portion of 411 up there, and essentially just extends the boundary of precinct 411. 411 as or if additional land is annexed north of 41st Street to the east of 2-7 over there, 4-11 would follow down and fill in down towards 41st Street, with 2-7's eastern boundary being 6 Mile Road where it currently is. This change affects no voters, as there are no voters in that newly annexed area. And obviously, as I just mentioned, there would be no change to 2-7. There are no changes in polling places. We'll retain the same ones that we had previously. Precincts 213 and 216. 213, and as you see up there, 216, together they were precinct 213. Lincoln County has already made this change. 213 was a very large precinct, among the largest in the city and among the largest voter turnout. So what the Lincoln County Auditor did is it split the precinct at Southeastern Avenue, making the eastern boundary of precinct 213 now Southeastern Avenue, and a new precinct 216, which is now our 72nd precinct in the city, will extend from Southeastern Avenue to the eastern city limits. You can see the amount of registered voters in each one. Postcards have already been mailed to to the voters in precinct 2-16. This does require the use of a new polling place, and that's Spirit of Peace Church down to the southwest there on the screen. It's not inside the precinct itself, 216 that is, but it's as close as we can get it to it. So as I mentioned, all voters have been notified, and as people continue to register in that area, they'll be notified of their polling place as well. Subject to your questions, that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Tom. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Council, do you have questions for Tom on this?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion approved by Kylie, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion? We will take a vote.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert? Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, please.
Next item is item 49, a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 122 tattooing. Recommendation set a date of second reading for Tuesday, December 10th, 2019.
There we go. Good evening, Alicia.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Alicia Kalura, City Health Department. I am here to do first reading for adding microblading to our tattoo ordinance, Chapter 122. As we've visited in the past, microblading, like tattooing, uses punctures to put ink underneath the skin. And also, like tattooing, if done in an unhygienic capacity, can lead to transmission of bloodborne pathogens as well as other infections. Just a very brief timeline. We've talked at previous meetings that we did thoroughly research this topic and look at other communities and the impact of these changes on the microblading artists. We also met with microblading artists in August, and then we brought our proposed tattoo ordinance changes to you in October and November this year. Throughout this process, we have not had any concern from the microblading community or the community at large. So what we would propose changing is simply adding microblading to the definitions of tattooing, as well as adding microblading to the actual definition of tattooing. By making this change, this will subject microblade artists to the same licensing and inspections that we currently do for our local tattoo artists in the community. We would also recommend that we require, as part of our application process, that applicants for tattoo licenses complete bloodborne pathogen training. Remember that this was actually a suggestion from the microblading community. They noted that this is a gap in our ordinance. We agree with them that this would be in the best interest of public health, and so we are bringing their recommendation forward to you as well. The last two items are cleanup items. This is regarding, there is language in our current ordinance that requires an autoclave. The last time this ordinance was touched, I believe, was 1993, and since then, sterilization practices have changed. You can actually use completely disposable items in the activities of tattooing or microblading, so we would support that if an artist is using completely disposable items, that we would not require them to have that big, heavy, expensive piece of equipment, and allow them to make a business practice to choose either fully disposable or autoclavable items. So the changes proposed in 122.042 and 122.073 would resolve that issue. And then lastly, there was also some archaic language in 122.055 related to the transmission of communicable diseases. We would like to modernize this language. We did align it with the same language that is held within the state administrative rules in a similar section. We also reviewed this with our chief medical officer, Dr. Tingley, who approved this language change as well. And I would also I forgot to mention that the autoclave and sterilization changes are also in keeping with what the state administrative rules have outlined as well. They've done at least 2 changes to their administrative rules around tattooing since we have in 1993. So I thank you for your consideration of these updates to our tattoo ordinance.
Thanks, Alicia. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have any questions for Alicia on this? Councilor Starr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Assistant Director, did you have a chance to review the application process and update the language in the form where people apply? And do you have a copy?
We did talk about that after that issue was raised at the last meeting. That, I must be honest with you and tell you that that was not within the scope of our review. We were really looking at the interest of public health or anything that was impeding current operations with our inspections, which are the things that we brought forward to you today. When we had discussions internally and asked the attorney's office about this, they really said that those provisions brought in, must have been in the 90s, would really be best, you know, you could certainly choose to make amendments to that process, but our point of view in doing this analysis was really the public health perspective, and so we did not look at our application process across the city and see if it was consistent with how we're asking those questions of other entities making licenses. So that is something that was put into ordinance by a previous council. From a public health perspective, I know there was a question on identifying people's identities, like their eye color, hair color, and that seemed a bit onerous. When someone is, you know, actually doing a procedure on you where they could, you know, transmit bloodborne pathogens, those seem appropriate from a public health perspective. As far as the ownership piece, I can't speculate as to why those were originally put into the ordinance, and so something for you to consider.
Thank you. Would the department object then to waiting an extra week to do the research to make the amendments that I would need then? I just assumed we'd clean this up because one of the biggest things we've argued about as a council is whether we can know who owns a business that we're doing business with, and we're asking for ownership information as part of the application, and anyone who owns 10% or more. So if you'd give me an extra week, if that doesn't slow this process down too much, to make those amendments and to work with the city attorney's office to fix that, because we are talking about the ordinance does talk about the application process, so.
I suppose from a technical standpoint, it's not going to impact our process. Our renewal process for existing licensed tattoo parlors those have already gone out for 2020. So whatever you do approve tonight or within 1 or 2 weeks, that will take another 20 days, which puts us into 2020 regardless. So our next step of this process is going to be educating existing licensed tattoo parlors as well as new microblading artists. So from a technicality standpoint, I mean, I don't mind coming back in 2 weeks if that's what you're asking.
Thank you.
With that being said, you want to set a motion for a date of second reading for the 17th then instead of the 10th? You're going to make that motion?
So moved.
Second, Staley.
All right. Motion by Starr, seconded by Saley, to set the date of second reading for Tuesday the 17th instead of the 10th. Any discussion on that, council? All right, let's take a vote on that, please.
I'm sorry, who made the motion and second?
The 17th. It was made by Councilor Starr and seconded by Councilor Staley.
Okay. Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. Item 50, please.
Item 50 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, authorizing the issuance of its wastewater system revenue bond in one or more series to the South Dakota Conservancy District, authorizing the use of the proceeds thereof for capital improvements, pledging the wastewater system revenue of the city to the payment of said wastewater system revenue bond, fixing the terms of such wastewater system revenue bond, authorizing the execution and delivery of a loan agreement between the city and the South Dakota Conservancy District, and authorizing the execution and delivery of such wastewater system revenue bond to the South Dakota Conservancy District not to exceed $41,625,000. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, December 10th.
All right. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mark Cotter with the Office of Public Works. This item tonight's the first reading of 2 readings, builds off several previous actions. About a year ago, we were in front of you to set the rate package that will fund the ultimate water reclamation improvements at the plant and in the collection system. Those rates have been established in ordinance now from 2020 through 2023. And then most recently, back in June, we were in front of you to present the facility application plan and funding request of $41.625 million. This is the first of 4 loans that will fund the necessary improvements at the wastewater plant. Recently, in September, the South Dakota Department of Natural Resources approved that facility plan and funding application. Doug Hayek, our bond counsel, and I are here tonight to go through just a few slides and ask for your support to go to second reading. All right, the first slide is just to orientate you on the location of the wastewater plant. I always like to highlight that I think our forefathers did a fantastic job securing about 400 acres in a very remote part of the city. Industrial is buffered around it. Most people don't know where our wastewater plant is, and that's a good thing. This next image is just an expanded view of the area. It is a regional facility that provides wastewater service not only to Sioux Falls, but to a select other entities that have requested to be a part of the regional system. There's a number of rehabilitation stages and enhancements and expansions that are needed to rehabilitate this nearly 40-year-old facility to really position us for the next 20 years of growth. Those areas that have been clouded in blue are really the primary areas that will be rehabilitated. So we'll take this facility from a capacity of 21 million gallons a day up to 30 million gallons a day. As I said, this is the first of 4 loans for the wastewater plant improvements of $159 million. Each year we'll be here at about this time to request the next loan. This one is for $41.625 million. We got very favorable rates from the DENR. It's 2.5% interest for 20 years. Schedule builds off, we've shared that. And then we did kick off the design back in September. As I was sharing with Councilor Brecky before we got started, we're finally getting to the fun stage. We're right in the thick of the design. Really expect to have conceptual design completed by about March of 2020. Then we'll take about 6 weeks to prioritize and cost out that design. We do expect to start quarterly updates for the City Council starting on January 7th, and then keep you abreast of not only the design, but the CMAR contract and everything that will begin to unfold over between now and 2024. And with that, we're here to answer your questions.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Mark on that? Are you here to speak, sir? Come on, come forward.
Dana Lowski, Sioux Falls, representative of Friends of the Big Sioux River. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I understand that the bulk of this program bulk of this expense is basically for the growth of our city. And this city has had a great tradition. It's always impressed me with how well we plan, whether it be sexy projects such as refurbishing Sioux Falls or Falls Park, or whether it be the going way back and the leaders that brought us a bike trail and really started cleaning up the river to begin with, to less sexy projects such as lift stations and sewers and so on. And like I said, the city's always impressed me with their planning. But I understand that the plans for this water treatment plant do not include anything as far as the removal of nitrates from our water. Currently, our wastewater plant is dumping 6,000 pounds of nitrates a day into the Big Sioux River. So if you do that on an annual basis, it adds up to over 2 million pounds. Our plant is the greatest contributor of nitrates to the river, and nitrates are the biggest carcinogen that's in our Big Sioux River watershed. And I understand it would be an additional expense to take it to do anything further and put in denitrification equipment. But I really think that because of our past leadership doing the right things and planning for the generation ahead, whether it be clean water, whether it be bike trails, whether it be lift stations and so on, that the leadership of Sioux Falls today, those city council members, Mr. Mayor, that we strongly consider as soon as possible a way that we can put in denitrification equipment and set an example for the rest of the state. When I talk to farmers and rural landowners about their tile draining and they're trying to reduce the amount of nitrates that they run off through their tile drains or from surface runoff, the first thing they'll do is say, well, why worry about me when you've got the city of Sioux Falls putting out, thousands of pounds of nitrates a day? He said, more than what I can do in 10 years. And so, we got to stop pointing the fingers at other people as far as it's their goal to clean up the river, and it's not my responsibility. So I really would think at some point that in the very near future that we install denitrification equipment and we look at that and do our job as a leading city and most progressive city in the state of South Dakota. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Anyone else here to speak on this topic? All right, councilors, any questions for Mark regarding the bond portion of this? Councilor Brecky.
Just, one question, Mark. Have you explored that issue? I think, I've talked to you just briefly about, the things that, again, in a visionary capacity, we should be talking about air quality standards, water quality standards, higher than what minimum standards are. And this is the time to do that when we really don't have problems. So I was very intrigued by what he was suggesting, and just, has there been discussions about that? Have you been thinking about that for the future?
We certainly have, and I have great respect for Dana. We have a good relationship. We're meeting our current permit, and in fact, in many cases exceeding it, working closely with the DNR and what our next permit will be. And then ultimately, what we design in this rehabilitation and expansion will position the plant to when there's additional permit requirements that will meet those. We are right in the middle of conceptual design. And so I think it'll be more appropriate probably after March to talk about what we expect the biomodels to do with how the plant currently operates and how it will operate in the future, and to give you a little bit better perspective on what we'll be doing with nitrates.
Is it scientifically possible to remove all nitrates to be nitrate-free, or is that like terribly expensive? Or when he says nitrate removal equipment, can you get the kind of equipment to actually remove all the nitrates?
You can. It's a, be it a chemical or biologic process, and again, we're having close conversations with the DNR because they're the authority on who gets permitted and what your permit standards are. And I just think that there'll be after we get through, we have a large workshop tomorrow on liquid treatment, and once we get through, studying these various processes, I think it'll be much better timing about March of next year to really talk about what we expect the new biomodels will say our treatment characteristics will be.
And I look forward to those discussions. I think that, I do love what he said about us being a leader, because I do think in the Big Sioux River issue, it's too easy to just, pass the buck. You should do this, you should do this. And we, because, if we do this, well, what's Watertown upstream doing? But at some point, I think that we really are the biggest one. Just like from a global standpoint, when it comes to cleaning up the world, United States is the biggest problem. So, we're the biggest leader in Sioux Falls, and I think that, at some point, if it could be part of what we're doing, I would certainly chime in that I would be very supportive of discussions along that line.
Very well. Sounds good.
Any other questions for Mark? Counselor Staley?
So, Mark, coming back to the financial aspect of this, by 2024, we will have borrowed the whole $260 million. That it's going to be done.
We will invested that. Not all of that is borrowed dollars. There's a number of cash-driven projects that we do, but when we wrapped up that 5-year capital plan, it was $260 million.
And does that include interest?
No, that's the capital amount of what the improvements are.
So, so we're going to be paying that 2.5% on top of that.
That's right.
Okay, so the other thing, because I've been asked recently, about, I've had concerns about how we're going to pay for this moving forward. It's a projection that we're going to have 100,000 people in the next 20 years, I understand. What I'd like it for the second reading is if you could get a printout of the rate increases for the next 10 years. Right. And I know we talked about some of those going out. I know you had, 3 years of 6% each?
No, it's a declining scale, but I can certainly bring that, slide back. But the only thing this council has acted on is 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. And so the outside of that is only a projection. And so I can certainly show you what the slide we used back in, it was either November or December of 2018. Right. But we can certainly bring that
And
back.
I thought it was 3 years of 6%, and then maybe you had it going down from there.
No, it's actually, I think, 654, and then it flattens out to 3.
I thought there were, okay, well,
But
that'd be
I'll bring
good to
that
have a
slide back.
review. But, so if we're talking to citizens, though, about in 2025, in 2026, what the rate increases are going to be, we really don't know. Right,
They're
we're not.
projections at this point.
So when do the projections end? What year?
Right now, they're on the graph that we showed you back about a year from this month, was 3%.
For the next 10 years?
I think they went out about another 4 to 5 years beyond
Well,
that.
as far as you go, just so we can say to
Sure.
the citizens, because here's the deal. At the end of the day, when this comes to be passed, I'm going to say to the citizens, we have been assured by our Public Works Director, and, we passed this through, that you will never be put in a hardship financially with these water and sewer bills.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have some of the lowest water bills and wastewater bills in the whole region, and also fortunate that we don't have a water increase. It was only an increase on the wastewater side, but I'll bring that slide for you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on this? I'd like to make a motion to set a second reading for Tuesday, the 10th.
So moved, Erickson.
Second, Kylie?
All right, motion by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Any other discussion, council? All right, let's vote on it, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Silberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 51.
Item 51 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 111, alcoholic beverages, to reduce the full-service restaurant on-sale license fee and phasing out the off-sale packaged liquor city waiting list and on-sale dealer licenses in alcoholic beverages city waiting list. Recommendation set a date of second reading for Tuesday, December 10th.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Erickson, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. We had an information on this last week. Jim David's going to flip through some of the slides. I'm going to go over the presentation again. I will be brief. I know I've talked to each and every one of you, as well as Councilor Selberg has as well, but want to go through this on first reading. Second reading will be a bit briefer. So the intent of the ordinance is to reduce the full-service restaurant on-sale initial license fee from $260,000 to $155,000. Before I go on, I do want to make reference that that $155,000 is essentially as low as it can go. We did speak to each of you, as well as a few different associations throughout the city. Based on the census in 2021, that amount will automatically go up to about that 192. And so for fairness, for the 4 licenses that did buy that, there will be an amendment next week that will match the actual full on-sale liquor license of 192-ish. It will be in there. So before I go on, I just want to make sure that I don't make anybody super nervous on that amount. And that simply is, in a 12-month period, to go from 260 to 155 back up to 192 is a little bit confusing and does create some fairness issues. And that was the feedback that I did receive from a handful of establishments that would like to see them match for the time being. And so in the spirit of compromise, I'd like to offer that. The second item is to repeal the off-sale package liquor license and on-sale dealer license waiting list with a grandfather clause. The full-service restaurant on-sale license was created back in 2008. I'm going to kind of fly through some of this, as we've talked about it a lot. This was essentially created as $1 per person for the census. The municipalities had to go back and find out what the full on-sale liquor license sold for off-market and what that current fair market value is. Even though they're separate licenses, that's what the legislature did tell us we had to do. And so that amount was set at $260,000 based on that fair current market value, March 9th of 2009. With that full on-sale restaurant license, you've heard us talk about that there needs to be 60% gross revenue, and it's derived from the sale of food and non-alcoholic beverages. Documentation is required, and the city does verify those licenses. There has been 4 sold to this point, 2 most recently being in 2018. The full-service restaurant license, like I said, the opportunity for this, the current fair market value provision has expired in Sioux Falls, allowing for a more realistic price for full-service restaurant on-sale licenses. I will remind you as well that should a person own a full on-sale liquor license and, say, go out of business or choose to not be in business any longer, they can in turn transfer and sell that off-market. And there's been rumors is it going on up to $380,000, but realistically staying in that $300,000 range, essentially creating an investment of approximately $100,000. Now, with a restaurant license, I'll remind you that while yes, it allows you to do something, it does not retain that value in which you cannot resell it. You just go get a different one. And so if I'm a restaurant and I choose to go out of business, that license just goes away with my business, and essentially I wouldn't resell it for any particular reason, because you could just go to Jamie and get a new one. So the fee reduction, like I said, it does say $155. I do want to remind you, though, that we will be lowering that, actually lowering it from $260 to that $192 to create more of a level
playing field with that. We feel that this could create some economic development. A reduced fee would allow existing restaurants to grow and incentivize new restaurants to join our community. The proposed fee recognizes that on-sale restaurant licenses must comply with more regulatory hurdles than the on-sale dealer license, with 60% food and 40% of other revenue from beverages. The next item I'm going to discuss is the wait list. I want to start off by saying at no point is anyone doing anything wrong. They're simply operating within a system in which government created, I'll say, and sometimes we get in the way. And so those folks that have put their name on a wait list, they saw an investment opportunity and, again, are operating within that realm. We are proposing to seize that list as of November 1st. Based on case law, this was done, and it's an example that was done previously with the smoking ban and or the cigar area. Now, when I say we are going to cease this list as of November 1st, we will honor those licenses, those folks that did put their name on the license. Approximately, I think there's 17 or 18, I think, right now. But there has been no new names put on since we made this announcement. There's not been an influx of that or anyone calling in regards to that. So, but we would honor those. It will take us probably 4 to 6 years to work through that list of folks on that wait list. Currently, it takes $1,500 to put your name on that list, and it does go towards the sale of that liquor license, which the current market for that liquor license is $192,360. On top of that, what we are asking the administration to do is then research and come up with other municipalities that maybe have a list and or some criteria. We certainly don't want to create a Black Friday-ish scenario where people are camping out to get their name when we have 2 or 3 licenses available. So we do have time. Right now, we just want to pause and say, okay, what is that criteria? Is it a sales tax license? Is it a security plan? Is it LLC paperwork? We don't know, and to be honest, I feel it's best coming from those experts that are working in that field every day now. So the intent is there will be some sort of criteria put in place through collaboration with the City Council. I know many of you have offered suggestions and input and would like to have a seat at the table, and so I encourage you to reach out as we move forward with that. I think I've covered mostly everything on there. We did the informational last week. We're at first reading today. I'd ask for the second reading to be placed on December 10th. Through this process, I've reached out to many different groups, being transparent with them, letting them know what's coming forward, fully knowing that some may not like what we are doing or may have some concerns. I've listened to those concerns, and that's where the compromise has come forward with honoring it at that $192,360. We've reached out to the South Dakota Retailers Association, Downtown Sioux Falls Chamber, the State Chamber, as well as the South Dakota Liquor Association and Gaming Industry, and I know I said that wrong, so I apologize for slaughtering that name, but you get the gist. As well as, since there's been some media reports, there has been some folks that have reached out as well. So I appreciate all your input. I know all of us have been looking at this, and so I really feel that this is a proposal coming forward from this council because we've all had some sort of comment about it over the last couple of years and looking at the census changes. So we've hit that 10-year mark and would ask for your approval for second reading. I'm happy to answer any questions and take any feedback.
All right, thank you, Counselor. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this topic? Good evening.
Good evening. Joe Batchelor, downtown Sioux Falls. I want to just thank Councilor Erickson for bringing this forward. I think the intent behind this is good. I just wanted to speak to the economic development problem that this could help solve. And I know personally because I've tried to recruit restaurants to come to downtown Sioux Falls, and this has been a hang-up with how licensing is done. There was a restaurant group from North Dakota that pulled out because it was unaffordable. And so I just want you to know that this is not a solution in search of a problem. That there is some real barriers to entry for restaurateurs, and so I hope that you will give this consideration. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else here to speak on this tonight? All right, counselors, since it's a council-led initiative, let's get a motion on the floor and then we can have discussion.
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
All right, motion by Erickson, seconded by Selberg to have a second reading next week on this. Discussion, council. Councilor Brecky.
Kind of first a statement and then I guess a question for the city attorney. You know, I like what Marshall, council members Erickson and Selberg have put together, but my question is, does it go far enough? I raised it at the informational meeting and I'm re-raising it because basically what we're doing here is we're reducing the cost, for a short window, and we're eliminating the list by attrition, which could go quickly or it could go more slowly. We don't know that. And we had public testimony that said it could actually happen, fairly fast. My concern is, why aren't we making preparations as part of this ordinance for the new list that we're going to need to establish and what those criteria are? The thing that I'm the most concerned about is by not taking a holistic approach to this and dealing with that issue at this time, the worst thing that I think could happen is that we find ourselves in a situation where we, don't have a list and we have applications come in. And, having lived through a time when there wasn't a list, I can tell you we don't want to go back there. Having a list is better than having no list at all. So, the city attorney's office was involved in this. Did you guys discuss, I'm just concerned as to why we're doing it this way, why we're not looking at that issue at the same time.
Well, it's been discussed, and part of this I defer to Councilor Erickson on it. I mean, it's been discussed from a legal sufficient point of view when we look at an agenda review process, and Keith is free to comment on this as well, but at this point, this proposed ordinance is legal as it stands here today. As to whether or not that piece should be addressed, some of that has been addressed by Councilor Erickson, but it's one that it not being addressed doesn't render this piece illegal. It's legally sufficient, so to speak. I don't know if you have anything to add to that,
Yeah,
Keith,
that's not my question. I mean, I guess my question would be for Keith then. I mean, do you think it makes sense to address the rest of the issue, at this time?
Well, and not to preempt Keith, and you're certainly welcome to comment, but I don't know that it's, as far as whether it makes sense,
Okay, does it make legal sense to do it this way?
It certainly makes legal sense. It would be legal to do that at this time. It's not illegal to not do it, if that's not a lawyerly double negative. And so you don't have to do it at this point. Whether it's a good idea to do it or not is really outside the scope of the city attorney's office if it's legal to present this ordinance as it's in its form today.
Maybe I'm not going to get an answer to this, but, would it be a best practice to do it piecemeal like this, or would it be a better practice governmentally to do it, more holistically and not put us at risk of being in a situation where we don't have a list and criteria established for it?
Well, I would agree with what you stated, Counselor, regarding we don't know how long or how quickly that list may dwindle, the existing list. But again, from a best practices point of view, and you had mentioned before you lived during a time, you were affiliated with city government in one form or another, when you didn't have a list, it wasn't illegal at that point, and so a change was made. There is the potential that, hypothetically, this happens in 3 months. The likelihood of that is maybe low, but at this point, absent a proposal, we can't, as we sit here today as a city attorney's office, I can't sit here saying it must be part of that or it's illegal again to not have it.
I would just add this as an exclamation mark to the point I'm trying to make here. If we're in a situation without a list, I'll tell you what happens. Here's what happens, and I'm just going to use a hypothetical example. You have X amount of new licenses, and you have, let's say Pilates, and you have Pilates competing with P.F. Chang's and Cheesecake Factory And the council then has to decide, who gets the available license with no criteria. And it becomes really, really difficult. And they can't do it by lottery, and they can't do it by lottery. They have a decision they have to make. They can't do it by any game of chance or process of chance. They have to make a decision. It has to be a decision made by the council. And the discussion and the debate and the difficulty of going through that process, I can't explain enough or exaggerate enough how difficult that process is, because generally speaking, the local favorite, do you base it on income? Do you base it on revenue? Do you base it on how many people? Do you base it on whether it's a private club or it's the new latest and greatest that you want to come to Sioux Falls? I've seen those discussions. They're very divisive. It's a terrible struggle, and I think coming up with this criteria, is not going to be easy. And I'm guessing that there's stuff out there and it has been done, but I think we need to, if we don't do it with this, the reason I'm making a fuss about it is I think we really need to get on that right away, because it's going to take some discussion time to figure out what are going to be the criteria for the new list.
And if I may respond to that, I think your point's being made. I think that's within the purview of the council to decide, and ultimately vote yes or no on this particular proposal as to whether it's a best practice, as opposed to a legal decision. Whether it's the right decision for the council or for the city would be a council decision as opposed to a legal conclusion.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on this or comments? Councilor Kiley?
I guess one thing that I would request to have is, what's the size of our list? And I believe it was mentioned last week. And, how many licenses typically can we issue? Or in what history would show it took us this long to go through a list of that length? I'd request that just between now and second reading.
Okay.
A question for Councilor Erickson or Councilor Selberg, because I don't want to leave him out. He's been unusually quiet here this evening. The full-service restaurant license, did you state that you were going to move that from 155 to 190?
Correct.
And I know that last week I stated that, let's make it as low as we can. However, it is going to be for a very short period of time, and that doesn't make any sense, so I rethought that. So I have no issue with that. Regarding the repeal of the off-sale packaged liquor and license and the on-sale dealer license waiting list, it's my opinion that what we have is currently broken. I mean, what's it allowing is speculators to get their names on the list with no intention of ever using that license other than purchasing it and then selling it on a secondary market for a very increased price, which is counterproductive to what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide these licenses so that they're going to be in service to our citizens as the population continues to increase. So I guess I could look at it this way, that this would force us to come up with a better system, because I don't see that list being depleted overnight, and it's going to take some time to do that. One of the things that I've thrown out to Councilor Erickson, and whether it's legal or not, and that's something that we'd have to discuss, but if an individual is going to purchase one of these licenses, that they have to actually commit to opening a brick and mortar store and actually use that license for a period of time before they're eligible to sell it, to prevent the speculation that's taking place and then the profiting that's taking place on the secondary market. So whether we can do that or not, I'm not sure. We'd have to look into that. But I think we can do better than what we're currently doing.
Do you want to go, Councilor Erickson?
Yeah, Jamie, if you could come up, please. It's my understanding there's 18 on the list. Tell me the next time that we will have liquor licenses available, Because I know we just had 6 that were given. When will be the next time that there will be liquor licenses available?
So on even-numbered years, we can do a calculation of 90% of the estimated population growth, except on the decennial census years. So the next time we will know is based on the 2020 numbers, which will be in 2021.
Thank
We
you.
will find out those numbers. It has to be the official numbers released by the census.
So what I want to remind everyone is that we will not have another liquor license available until 2021. So we know we have a solid 12 months to come up with criteria, which I think is more than fair, in my opinion, for us to collaborate, do it, find out what's legal, find out what other cities are doing. We're unique. I will say that there are cities that would love to have liquor license available, and we're able to get them in those every other year, where we just had 6 and we're able to kind of prorate that. So we've got 12 months to come up with the criteria on the list, that not a single person will be moved from that list. And even then, we only had 6 this last time. So even with going with the number that we've had in the past, 6 every other year is going to put us at 4, 5 years until we work through that list, and giving those opportunities to folks. So I welcome Jamie, Keith, Stacy, any of you that would like to come up with some sort of criteria. We did beat around a handful of criteria as far as sales tax license, this, that, reporting. I don't have the answer, and I am hopeful that we can come up with 5 or 6 things that require it.
Counselor Neitzer and then Counselor Selberg.
So as you're talking, I've been kind of thinking this through in my mind. So essentially, I think the right word is, it's almost as if well, first of all, if we agree that the process is broken or maybe not optimal, as long as it exists, people can keep adding themselves to the list. So until we essentially, I'm going to call it a moratorium, we would be implementing a indefinite moratorium, essentially. It's somewhat analogous to a few years back in the Billboard Task Force. A moratorium was put in place because we all agreed we think there's something wrong with how we're permitting billboards. There may be going in locations we don't like. So we put that in place to give us time to sit down, have a task force, figure it out, and write an ordinance. And that would lead to my question. If we have an indefinite moratorium, essentially, is what we would have. The list, you couldn't get on a list once this would pass. Let's say it takes a while to work this out, and maybe an attorney might have to answer this. If a license becomes available, are we legally obligated to, I don't know if the word is sell it, award it, or can we say we have no process in place? We're not doing it until we get, just hypothetically, are we legally obligated if one becomes available and there's a moratorium, there's no list anymore, we have no process in place to say we will not issue it until a process is approved?
I appreciate the question, and I will tell you that there's 18 people on the list. And so I think in my 6 years being on this council, there has only been one time that it was turned back in for lack of using it. And even then they tried to say, oh, we used it, we want to transfer it to somebody else. And this council said, no, that's not how it works. And it was kind of a little bit of a legal dramatic thing. I think you remember that. I think you were on the council then too. And so that was not too long ago. So that was turned back in. But in 6 years, one has been turned in. They're just not turned back in because you're going to resell them off market. So if I own the restaurant or if I own the bar, I'm not going to turn it into the city. I'm going to turn around and sell it for $100,000.
Sorry. And to be clear, so what I'm saying is if it takes a while and then 2021 comes and they say we can sell 4 more, there's no waiting list. We have 4 and there's a stampede to the doors saying we want it. Are we legally obligated once we have them available to issue or sell them or whatever one chooses to use? Or can we say, nope, We're not selling them to anybody. We're going to spend 6 months working on this. Is there a state law that says if you have it, you have to sell it to somebody if they come knocking on your door?
I don't mean to dodge your question, but those four,
it's
those
very
four
unlikely.
would go to those 4 would go to the 18 on the wait list. So you have to work through the wait list first. So
Okay,
we're going
well, if
to
there is no
honor the
wait
wait
list,
list.
if there's no wait list, the wait list has gone away for some reason. 17, the one came available, 17 went down the list. I said, we don't want it. There's no wait list. It's all gone.
It's just not going to happen, Counselor, but I appreciate the question. It's
Yeah,
just
sure.
not, in this market, it's just not going to happen. But I'll defer to Stacy as far as if we legally have to sell a liquor license that's hanging out there in limbo, and there's, all 18 are gone, nobody wants it, and Joe Blow comes in and wants it.
Yeah. And I'd love it, the answer. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just, that would kind of answer possibly what you would call, what is the worst that could happen question. So.
Counselor Selberg, I'm going to give you the floor. Did you want to go next?
Well, I guess what I was going to say is discretion being the better part of valor. I'd want to take a look at that off the top of my head. I mean, it's wise to not speculate. I'd want to take a little time to research that. Unless Keith has any other input, but at this point, it's not something I'm prepared to, question just being posed. I want to make sure I take a look at it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Counselor Selberg.
Well, not to repeat a bunch of things, Counselor Erickson's hit them all very, very well. But I mean, we've got time to put the criteria in place. And I think that's the point where we want people in the know on this, and we want the input from the council and those to all work together and come up with the solid criteria where the people from here on out that are getting licenses are people that are legitimately getting them to do business. So, I mean, as Councilor Kiley said, the way the system is right now, and in a lot of ways it's working counterproductive because we've got people with no intention of opening a establishment. They're using it, doing nothing wrong, working within the system provided, but in that time, we've got people legitimately waiting for licenses for what it was meant for, while people are finding a loophole and working it the way they're gonna work it. So yes, we've got some time, 12 months, as you said, till the next license. We've got time to put in the criteria. I think we all look forward to everybody's input on that, especially those that have worked in this field and from doing study of other communities as well. So I think we've got time to do that. And I think you put that well, so there I spoke, Councilor Kiley.
Thank you. Counselor Staley.
Jamie, if we continue to grow as we were supposed to grow to support our new wastewater treatment plant fees, so we have been growing about 5,000 a year. Apparently, we don't really know for sure because we haven't had our census yet, but what we're basing a lot of things on that 5,000 a year. So how many more, how does that work for the amount of liquor licenses available? What is the population?
So we are allotted 3 licenses for the first 1,500 of our population, and then we're issued 1 license for each 1,000 population after that. So once those official numbers come out, we're basing, the 6 that were just issued were based on the estimated population growth.
Of what, how many, 6,000?
Well, whatever the estimated numbers were released for 2018, we were allowed 6. So off the top of my head, I don't have the math on that.
Didn't you say it was per 1,000, 1 per 1,000?
Yeah, correct.
So if we got 6, that would be 6,000.
90% of the estimated growth, though, so it's not an exact, it's a calculation that I have to do off 90% of the estimated growth. And so, so then when the official numbers come out, we can do the full census numbers, not 90%, it's the full number that comes out. But with that, the licenses that we've issued in between 2010 and 2020, so I believe there's 7 that we've issued based on the estimated growth. That will count against us when the official numbers come out. So if the official number of 2020 comes out and says we can have 10 licenses, well, we've already given out 7, so we'll only have 3 to give, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
So we have to base it on the official numbers in 2020.
All right, Counselor Kiley.
Well, first of all, I think before 18 people somehow remove themselves or for some reason remove themselves from the waiting list, I think all our vehicles will be operating on hydrogen, or we're going to be teleporting ourselves someplace before that ever happens. So in other words, I don't think that's likely to happen, Counselor. You know, the worst case scenario is if we don't identify something between now and 2021, or when we actually 2021, I suspect we won't have depleted that list by more than a half, and I'm being generous there. But the worst case scenario is we simply re-implement the waiting list as it stands today. I think this is an opportunity to improve upon the system. And the other thing too is licenses will continue even when we cannot offer a new license. Licenses will still remain available on the secondary market as individuals are selling them or going out of business and getting offers that they can't refuse.
All right, Councilor Brackey.
To be clear, I do want to, compliment the efforts that have made. I don't want anything that I've said to indicate that I'm not appreciative of where you're going with how far you've went. I guess I just wanted to raise the red flag about how important it is on a go-forward basis that we dive into the next stage. And, so I want to make sure everyone understands that. And if I could be of help, I would be glad to be involved with that process.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this just gets to the absurdity of what we're trying to do with alcohol licenses as a state, that we try to regulate it. I think Mr. Batchelor made a great point that maybe we're limiting the ability of small people to get into the marketplace and protecting. And, it was funny because when I talked to Councilor Erickson earlier today, one of my biggest concerns was how do we protect an asset that current license holders have? We worry about speculating on new licenses, but we speculate on current licenses. A lot of licensors are used as collateral for loans or their business growth, or for some, they look at it as their license as being their retirement plan, so that when they do sell their establishment, or if something, God forbid, happened with their restaurant or their bar, they have that ability. But to not make headlines, I got in trouble when I suggested that maybe video lottery establishments should just have 25 machines. Maybe I'm suggesting that we get out of the licensing business altogether. It sure consumed a lot of our meeting this evening of how we deal with it, and I felt bad about putting business owners through the ringer to make sure that they hold on to their license for one fail on an hourly employee. But at the same time, we have very little ability to hold business owners accountable when they're not doing a good job with their business. And we'll deal with that in a couple of weeks from now. So to not make the headline, but maybe I'm ready to not do licensing, or to do an unlimited licensing rather than artificially coming up with a number that's based on 90% of a population of a growth of 1,000 people and the crazy part of it. I'll save that for my run for the state legislature.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there further discussion on this? And again, that's to set a second reading for next week. Any other discussion? All right, let's take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. We're on to item 52.
Item 52, a resolution declaring certain real property the city surplus and authorizing the demolition and salvage thereof.
Good evening, councilors. Jeff Eckhoff, Planning and Development Services. Our housing manager, Shelley Unruh, was in Rapid City tonight meeting with city officials and a developer out there that does affordable housing, so I'm standing in for her. This resolution has to do with the Rose Lotta buyout homes. If you remember, there are 8 homes that have been purchased, and this resolution allows 2 things. There's 5 of those homes that we intend to demolish and 3 that we intend to move. It allows the demolition of those homes, and it allows Habitat for Humanity to come into those homes and salvage what they can out of them prior to demolition.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Is anyone from the public here to speak on these items? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Jeff on this?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, move to approve by Counselor Kylie, seconded by Sale. Any discussion, council?
I do have.
Counselor Staley?
Jeff, if you could come back. Jeff? Interesting about the salvaging the home furnishings. Tell us about what that, is that like window frames, doors?
What cabinets, casework, I think, are the main thing they look at. And of course, doors, windows, framings, anything that's usable, and they would use it for the restore.
Do they bathtub sinks?
I'm not sure of that. I'm not sure of that.
And so furnishings doesn't mean furniture.
No.
It's, okay, that's a good thing. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Jeff? All right, counselors, let's take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Elberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes. All right, that passes 8-0. Next item.
Item 53, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and the Wagner Arboretum Society for the management of the Mary Jo Wagner Arboretum and East Sioux Falls Historic Site, including the Mabel and Judy Jasper Educational Center, the Jasper Family Gardens, and all other amenities consistent with the master plan.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, good evening. Jackie Nelson, Sioux Falls Parks and Recreation, here to talk to you tonight about the Mary Jo Wagner Arboretum Management Agreement. So quick overview, the current agreement expires here at the end of the year, December 31st. The current agreement does not have an extension option, therefore we are bringing a new agreement to you. With this new agreement, it would be a one-year term, so beginning January 1st of 20, ending December 31st of 2020. The reason for the one-year agreement versus a 3 or a 5-year previous agreement is because the Arboretum is currently undergoing a comprehensive master plan, and within that master plan, we feel there could be some future opportunities, impacts, direction that we might want to build into a longer agreement. So again, looking at it from the perspective of with the Arboretum currently going through that master plan, we want to stay put with just a 1 year and then based off of what's recommended, look for a future agreement that's maybe a little bit lengthier in time. With the new agreement that's in front of you, there are limited updates, so very similar to what's currently in place. And the limited updated agreement that you have in front of you has been approved by both the Arboretum Board and the Parks and Recreation Board. In terms of the updates that are in the new agreement, the 1-year term, so different than the 3-year term previous. We've also removed the business plan component. So the agreement that's expiring had a component in it where a business plan was required. The business plan will be part of the master plan that will be completed here in 2020. So we removed it from the agreement since it'll be part of the master plan. And then finally, we did update the society's address and phone number within the agreement as well. And with that, as I mentioned, the Arboretum Board and the Parks and Recreation Board have both approved this agreement. Staff recommends approval for this as well, and Diane Gildemaster from the Arboretum is here to help answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Jackie on this one? Mr. Mayor. Councilor Starr?
Yes. Jackie, when do we anticipate the master plan being completed? I guess I'm just concerned with the 1-year agreement that we'll be back here and we're not going to have time to negotiate it depending on what the results of the master plan are. So I'm trying to get an idea of when we think the Parks master plan will be ready.
So we have the Arboretum master plan and then we have the comprehensive system plan, so both.
Thank you, yes.
So yeah, the comprehensive system plan for Parks and Rec as a whole will be completed here early spring, January, February timeframe-ish.
I like that you think that's spring, so thank
That's
you.
spring right now.
January,
The Arboretum one, they're a little bit further along, and I haven't been part of all the conversations with that. I know Diane has, but that I believe is spring as well, is what you're looking at? Yeah. So I think they're going to fold in right alongside of each other.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jackie. Any other questions for Jackie? All right, look for a motion on this item.
Second, Erickson.
Okay, motion approved by Selberg, seconded by Erickson. Any discussion, council? All right, let's vote on this one, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Elberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 54.
Item 54, resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Windmill Ridge Addition. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
What are you still doing here?
Mayor,
City Council, Albert Schmidt, Planning and Development Services Office. This one is applicant owner of Doug Allen again. This is our 12th Street and Ellis Road location. Again, it's 42 acres. This is for the new residential subdivision he was looking to put out there. I will be happy to take any questions you have on that. I'll kind of scroll through some of the pictures so you can see kind of the general lot layout they're looking at for this one. Take any questions you have, though.
All right, thanks, Albert. Anyone from the public want to speak on this topic tonight? Councilors, any questions for Albert on this? Councilor Neitzer?
So going on Ellis Road is in the access into the whole development, it's just going to be 15th Street, this future 15th?
So based on the preliminary plan here, there'll be two accesses that will be usable right away. One is directly onto Ellis, and then there's one going south into the existing development there on the west side of the development.
Oh, probably like Gill Avenue potentially,
Gill
I
Avenue.
think goes down.
Correct.
And, kind of interesting, there's a Mary Jean Avenue, considering there's a Mary Beth just half a mile maybe south. I don't know if they have anything to do with each other or just two Mary somethings, but okay.
Any other questions for Albert on this? All right, I'd look for a motion to approve it.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Sale. All right, motion to approve it by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Sale. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll vote on it, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Elberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 55.
Item 55, a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Harvest Creek Addition. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
This is our last one tonight that matches up with one of our rezonings. The owner applicant here again is Brady Hyde, located west of Highway 11th and south of 57th Street, 117.41 acres, and it's for new subdivision, mostly residential with some office and commercial along 57th Street. This kind of gets you a gist of kind of what they're generally looking at. They're probably more, very few single homes overall, probably more townhomes, twin homes, fourplexes, things like that generally. I'll take any questions you have on this one too.
All right. Thank you, Albert. Anyone from the public care to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, any questions for Albert on this one? Councilor Neitzer?
I don't have a specific question, and ordinance really kind of defines the way in which we can order things, but I almost wonder if there's not a way in which, we couldn't somehow think about bundling the rezone and the, as far as order of operations, because I look at some of the people over here that are stepping in at 10:20 because they had one item that was way at the front, and just whether it's something maybe we can think about procedurally, but we are kind of hooked into, it may have to be amendments, and is it worth doing that, and does that set precedence, but just thinking out loud.
So most of the time when we do this, obviously these are by resolution, so they have to go at the end of the meeting by default. And we try to pair these up to go at the same time that you have a second reading on the rezones. That way you guys get to look at the whole thing as a whole in one meeting one night, so you get to make a decision without having to go, well, last week we already approved this, so we can have that discussion. So I think at that point, if you wanted to, you definitely could move them around on the agenda for each one that we have. But this is the busy time of the year for preliminary plans. After this time of the year, I would suspect that you're not going to get as many until next winter.
Calm down again. Okay, thanks. Just thinking out loud.
All right, I'd look for a motion on this item.
Move to approve.
Second. All right, motion approved by Kylie and seconded by Sale. Any discussion on the council? Let's vote, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Elberg?
Yes.
Sale? Star?
All right, that passes 8-0. We're on item 56.
Item 56, a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Cloverleaf Business Park Addition. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
And this is one of two that we have that didn't have rezoning tonight, so this is the first time you're seeing it. The applicant here is Eric Wildson. The owner is VFS LLC. It's located at the southwest corner of I-29 and I-90. It's approximately 107.3 acres, and its purpose is for light industrial business park land for development in the future. It's already zoned mostly for light industrial as well. So this kind of gives you a general layout there of what they're proposing at this point in time.
All right, thanks, Albert. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Albert on this? Motions?
Move approval. Second.
All right, motion approved by Selberg and seconded by Kylie. Any discussion on the council? All right, we'll vote on this, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Heitzert?
Yes.
Berg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 57.
Item 57, a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Sanford Sports South Edition. The Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
This is the last preliminary plan of the evening. The applicant here is Austin Parks with Sanford, and the owner is Sanford. This is located at the southwest corner of Cherry Hill Drive and North Westport Avenue, kind of just south of the Fleet Farm. The Fleet Farm's in the C4 red zone district on the north there. Its size is approximately 49.59 acres, and the purpose of this is to kind of revise the lot and block layout of this institutional office and commercial development. So it's already zoned accordingly. It's just to make those street connections up there with their layout now. This needed to go through so they could make that and then make a business decision on what's available to them later on. So.
Got it. All right, thanks, Albert. Anyone from the public here to speak on that one tonight? Come forward, young man.
Good evening, Mayor Tim Haken, members of the council. I'm Matt Dittmanson with the Sanford Sports Complex. Happy to answer any questions for you about the development work that we've been doing. Councilor Neitzert, I've fielded some phone calls from residents up there about some garbage removal and construction practices, and we've tried to be good citizens up there. We've cleaned the roads and cleaned up the garbage and tried to be responsible citizens up there in that end. But a lot of unsexy dirt work going on. I hope to announce some exciting projects here in the near future, but happy to answer any questions about that.
All right, thank you, Matt. Anyone else from the public here to speak on this? Councilors, do you have any questions for Mr. Dittmanson or Albert on this one? All right, look for a motion. Motion approved by Selberg, seconded by Kylie. Discussion on the council? All right, we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Heitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 58.
Item 58, a resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, annexation 9082-2018, Lisa Drive.
Excellent. So this is our one annexation for the evening. This was an oh my goodness, a petitioned annexation for this area. This is at 41st and Veterans Parkway. This area contains a local road, Lisa Drive, currently. The City of Sioux Falls is also tagging onto this application as we have a lot that we purchased with 41st Street expansion in this area. And it's just north of the Harmonon Park area. It's approximately 1.7 acres in size total. And the purpose is to annex this, develop lands, and the right-of-way for city services. There is an attached annexation agreement for the one lot on this exhibit, mark number 2, that's specific to that lot and those owners between them and the City of Sioux Falls. The thing to note here is there is currently public water and sewer installed into the road up to the north part of Lot 2 that was installed through a private cost recovery for Lot 2. And so as part of that discussion, we asked them to annex in, and this is kind of part of that follow-up. So with that, I'd be happy to answer anything else or the annexation agreement.
Okay, thank you, Albert. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have any questions for Albert?
Move to approve.
All right.
Second. Erickson.
Motion approved by Kylie and seconded by Councilor Erickson. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll vote on this one, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Heitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Council, any new business?
Move to adjourn, Star.
Second.
All right, motion adjourned by Starr and seconded by Erickson. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? All right, motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.